Huang Yueli casted a glance at him, feeling that what he asked was redundant. Of course, don't tell me you want to leave me behind. Li Moying replied hesitantly, Of course I don't want to leave you behind. But a place which could leave Jiyun in a life-threatening situation might be dangerous, so I'm worried. Huang Yueli raised her chin up as she replied unhappily, Stop looking down on me. My ability is much stronger than Luo Jiyun. Moreover, I'm worried too. The more dangerous the place is, the more I cannot let you go alone. With such a high-leveled armament master like me following you to battle, you should just feel glad about it. Alright, stop with the crap. Do you wish to save junior brother Luo or not? Li Moying looked at her deeply in the eye. Even though his heart was extremely unwilling, but he knew that he could not stop her. Forget it, so be it if you must tag along. But, if there's danger, forget it. Treat as though I didn't say anything, let's go. Li Moying originally wanted to tell her that if there was any danger, she should run off first, but thinking that saying these were useless because there would be no way that young lass would run off first, so he might as well swallow back his words. Huang Yueli's lips curled upwards as she left alongside him. The direction of the white smoke spiraling was on the other end of the cloudy Chilean mystic region. The two of them raced for the entire journey, and the more they raced, the stranger they felt. Because Luo Jiyun's position was much further than they thought, and it was extremely close to the center region of the cloudy Chilean mystic region. Strange, why would junior brother Luo run off to such a central area? Hadn't sect master Murong already reminded everyone before entering the mystic region that the more central the location is, the more dangerous it gets? Doesn't he know his own ability? He still dared to run off everywhere. Huang Yueli frowned. Li Moying's expression slowly turned grave. This fellow. He's really too reckless. Perhaps he really ran into some huge trouble this time round. Don't run off so quickly, follow right behind me. Huang Yueli knew her own limits, and when she heard that, she slowed down her speed, letting Li Moying go ahead of her. Li Moying became exceptionally cautious as he stopped speeding head first, but carefully observed the surrounding terrain. The two of them ran for another 20 over miles. Huang Yueli suddenly cried out, Look! There's the remains of a signal flare on the ground. That must have been left behind by junior brother Luo. He should have let out this signal flare from this area. Li Moying walked up quickly as he picked up the external shell of the signal flare, then looking around everywhere. There was no sight of Luo Jiyun anywhere. But, he quickly noticed markings of a fight on the ground. His pitch-black brows creased together. What on earth is going on? Jiyun was in a battle and let out the signal flare, but in the end, he's not here. Huang Yueli also pointed to those markings as she said, the battle that happened here must have been extremely intense. Look at those big trees on the ground. The tree trunks are so thick, but yet a lot of these trees have fallen onto the ground. There are many disoriented footprints on the ground, and so much blood has been spilled. Junior brother Luo is probably heavily injured. Li Moying apparently understood this, as well as his heart felt exceptionally heavy. Among so many junior brothers and junior sisters, his relationship with Luo Jiyun was the deepest. Because Luo Jiyun's character had been the most naive and his guts had always been the smallest. Since young he was always bullied by Murong Ni and the rest, so Li Moying personally guided him a lot, forcing him to grow up slowly. In Li Moying's heart, Luo Jiyun was no different from his own biological little brother. You can also listen on. Now, Luo Jiyun had met with danger and his life and death was unknown, which really made him extremely worried. But although he was worried, his rationality had not vanished. Li Moying's character was normally cold and stern, so no matter what kind of situation he encountered, he was always able to maintain his calm. It would usually be matters concerning Huang Yueli's safety which would make him lose control. Right now, he observed the situation around him and very quickly he came out with a conclusion. The bloodstains on the ground aren't only Jiyun's. Those bloodstains over there are obviously left behind from magical beasts. Looks like Jiyun had provoked a high-leveled magical beast. They should have ran off towards the east side, so let's head over to have a look. Follow me closely. Li Moying pointed to the east side, indicating Huang Yueli to chase up to his steps. Although he was worried about Huang Yueli taking the risk with him, but the both of them had already reached this place, hence leaving Huang Yueli at this place where the high-leveled magical beast had been before, it was definitely not safe, so it was much better to leave her beside her. The two of them walked one after another, following the bloodstains as they chased over. Huang Yueli utilized her agility dance steps, following tightly behind Li Moying as her slender brows creased slightly. She didn't know why that there was an ominous premonition in her heart, but somehow there seemed to be someone who was watching them. But every time she returned, she didn't see anyone but didn't know if it was her misperception. But at the very least, they had continued to head towards the east as they entered the cloudy Chilean mystic region's central region's boundary. Heading in further would be even more dangerous. Luo Jiyun was just too unreliable. He had actually not chosen his path properly while he was panicky. Based on his cultivation, dashing into the central region would really be asking for death. Moreover, as the two of them kept moving into the central region, the surrounding environment had undergone changes. The trees around the surroundings were getting lesser and lesser, but even if there was, it was just a few shrubs which didn't have much leaves. A strange smoke started to condense in the air as their visions became more and more blurry. The situation outside 100 meters couldn't be seen clearly anymore. Huang Yueli finally couldn't help but tugged Li Moying. Moying, the situation here is quite abnormal. Are we really going to continue probing inside? Li Moying's footsteps took a halt as he frowned. The footsteps which Jiyun left behind are headed all the way east, and the bloodstains left behind are more and more obvious, which means that his bloodstains are even more serious. If we can't find him before tomorrow, it would absolutely bode ill for him, Huang Yueli said, but if we continue heading inside, we will really be entering the central region. Each mystic region's central region is extremely dangerous, so based on our current ability, we must be extremely careful before proceeding. Li Moying turned his head back and grabbed her hands gently. I understand. But from the bloodstains on the ground, Jiyun shouldn't have gone far, at most another few hundred meters or no, he would definitely have fallen down. He should be somewhere nearby. So we won't be entering too deep in. Huang Yueli nodded her head. Right at this moment, suddenly, a faintly indiscernible moan was heard. Their spirits were instantly lifted. It's Jiyun. He's indeed around this area. Quick! We have to hurry over and take a look. Li Moying and Huang Yueli exchanged glances and hastened their footsteps as they sped towards the direction of the sound. What they didn't know were several pairs of eyes tightly fixed onto their backs, right behind them. Damn it! Why did Bai Ruoli come over as well? Leng Yifeng couldn't help but frowned. You can also listen on. The target who Leng Yifeng wanted to target was Li Moying alone, but he didn't want Huang Yueli to get seriously injured. Although Huang Yueli had disgraced him in front of everyone right in front of the cave dwelling when she decoded the array, but in Leng Yifeng's heart, the one who should die was Li Moying because it was this man who incited Huang Yueli. As for Huang Yueli, she was so young, so beautiful, and had outstanding innate talent, so for such a talented young lady, she naturally wasn't in the wrong. Not only did Leng Yifeng feel that she wasn't in the wrong, he was even more smitten by her because of her array master innate talent. They originally thought that Li Moying would know that the central region was dangerous, and considering Huang Yueli's safety, she absolutely would not bring her along. In the end, whoever would have expected that the two of them actually appeared together at this place? This made Leng Yifeng feel flustered. After all, his target this time was to get Li Moying dead and to get Huang Yueli into his hands, not to make her die. If Huang Yueli got into an accident, then the gains would not make up for the losses. Li Lingchuan totally couldn't be bothered about Huang Yueli's life or death, but seeing Leng Yifeng's anxiety, he advised, "Can't you still tell? Li Moying brings Bai Ruoli along wherever he goes, so it's very normal for them to appear together. It's great in this way too. After we have finished dealing with Li Moying, you can show yourself and save her. This is the best chance to act as a hero to save the damsel in distress." Leng Yifeng thought about it and replied, "All right, I'll take your advice. But this Li Moying is really a piece of s******. This is such a dangerous place, and he still insisted on bringing Miss Bai along. He really doesn't know how to treasure her at all. How could he let her take this risk? Miss Bai is really too pitiful for following such a man. I must save her from the fire. As the two of them were discussing this, Murong Fei walked over from not too far away. She lowered her voice as she said, "All right, I've seen it with my own eyes that fifth senior brother fell down from the cliff and everything had been arranged. After the matter is done, don't forget what you promised me." The two of them exchanged glances and hurriedly nodded as they patted their chests as a proof of guarantee. "Relax, after they fall down from the cliff, Mr. Lung will bring Miss Bai away. Then you can tell your eldest senior brother that she's already dead. I guarantee that Li Moying won't be able to find Bai Ruoli and this secret would never be exposed, so you can take advantage of this chance to win his heart." "That's right, haven't we agreed on this beforehand? Our motives are unanimous, which is to separate the both of them forever. I want Bai Ruoli and you want Li Moying, to each our gains." After Lung Yifeng and Li Lingchuan formed an alliance, in order to ensure the smoothness of the plan, so they made use of Murong Fei. But they naturally weren't so silly to tell Murong Fei that their real motive was to kill Li Moying. They had been cheating her, making her think that their motive was to bring Huang Yueli away. It was Murong Fei's wishful thinking that as long as Huang Yueli left, she would have a chance, but she totally didn't think that she would be tricked by them. Now hearing the two men's guarantee, she didn't suspect them as a smile finally appeared on her lips. "TMPF, this little slut tried her best to tangle around eldest senior brother, even using the trick of climbing up his bed to get engaged to him, but so what about it? Wasn't the person who had the last laugh still her, Murong Fei? But wasn't Bai Ruoli's romance too prosperous? Even a young master from a large family like Lung Yifeng actually wanted to get her. You can also listen on. What was so good about that wretched lass?" Murong Fei thought about it hatefully, and the more she thought, the more jealous she became. Why was it that she had gained all the advantages? Her innate talent was strong in every aspect and she was so beautiful. Not only Li Moying treated her with deep sentiments, even a respectable young master like Lung Yifeng was intent on getting her. It really was an infuriating thing to compare between them. Murong Fei's heart suddenly arose a thought: if only there wasn't a Bai Ruoli, if only she could completely disappear from this world. This thought sizzled and infested vigorously in her mind. Moreover, this was a heavenly chance. The central region was such a dangerous place. She only needed to rig up a scam and she would be able to let this wretched lass die in this place. If Lung Yifeng were to bring Huang Yueli away, perhaps she might still return, but if she really died, then she would really not be able to fight with her. The more Murong Fei thought, the more excited she got as she started to devise the evil plan in her mind. Two men and one lady smiled while looking at each other and seemed as though they had derived an agreement. But in actual fact, each of them harbored designs in their own hearts. Right now, not too far away, a flash of fire light flashed across. Especially when several claps of thunder struck across the sky, it gave out a deafening sound as it made everyone jump up in fright. "That's great. Li Moying seems like he's already hooked. Quickly head over and take a look." The three of them carefully concealed themselves as they sneaked over. Huang Yueli and Li Moying headed towards the direction where Luo Jiyun cried out, and after running for a few hundred meters, they suddenly stopped. The two revealed a shocked expression on their faces. Because right in front of them was a cliff. As they were nearer to the central region, the surroundings were covered by the fog and they were totally unable to see far away, so they had not noticed this earlier. The angle of the cliff was practically vertical without any slopes, so it was imaginable that if they fell down, they would directly fall into the depths of the valley. What made one even more uneasy was due to the fog, they could only see the situation several hundred meters below. It was evident that the depth of the cliff was not a mere 100 meters. How deep it was below was totally unforeseeable, hence there was no way to make any useful judgment on the condition of the cliff below. When Li Moying saw this scenario, he frowned and shouted towards the bottom of the cliff, "Fifth junior brother, are you below? If you are, make a sound to let me know." He had just said finished when a joyous voice was heard from below. Eldest senior brother, it's really you." Luo Jiyun sounded very weak, so his voice was breathless, but this bit of voice to a practitioner was enough. Li Moying and Huang Yueli heaved a sigh of relief because this voice sounded not too far away from them. It seemed that Luo Jiyun had not really fallen into the bottom of the valley. Li Moying asked again, How is your current situation? What position are you in? Speak clearly so that we can save you. Luo Jiun panted while he talked. I fell down from the other end of the mountain path. Earlier I was pursued by a 7th-tier magical beast and didn't see the road in front clearly, so I rolled down directly. Luckily for me, there was a large piece of rock by the time and it blocked my fall so I managed to retain my life. But my lower body is stuck in the rock, totally immovable. However, I have no way to climb up. Li Moying replied immediately, you don't need to worry, I'll bring you up. You can also listen on. Li Moying turned his head and took a glance at Huang Yueli. Leah, I'm heading down to take a look at the situation, you stay above. Huang Yueli nodded her head as she drew out a coil of rope from the Sky Phoenix ring and said, I refined this coil of immortal binding rope some time ago. It is refined using 1,000-year-old fiery spider thread and cannot be severed by profound weapons which are 5th tier and below. Bind it around your waist before you go down, so if you meet with any trouble, I can try to find a way to pull you up. Li Moying smiled as he said, all right, then I'll head down right now. Huang Yueli tied one end of the immortal binding rope to a tall old tree and later stood at the front of the cliff as she watched the coil of rope untangled slowly, as it slipped down the cliff along the way. Although the fog was so huge that she could no longer see Li Moying's figure, but she could still see from the tautness of the rope to figure out how deep he had gone. Huang Yueli's eyes were fixed on the rope when suddenly, an uneasy and confused feeling became more evident in her heart. Her premonition had always been accurate and she wouldn't get uneasy for no reason. Could it be that Li Moying would get into an accident? Li Moying hung onto the cliff as he went straight down. After descending for 1 kilometer or so, he finally caught sight of Luo Jiun. He was indeed in the exact situation as what he had described, stuck in between two pieces of rocks, just short of falling down. Luckily these two rocks were huge and looked rather stable, which had impacted Luo Jiun's descent, allowing him to preserve his life. Although this was so, but Luo Jiun's condition was extremely bad. There were all sorts of injuries and wounds on him and his blood kept spurting outwards, staining his clothes entirely red. As he had lost too much blood, his complexion had turned extremely pale, especially his lips, which had turned white, looking no different from a ghost. Furthermore, the worst of all was that Li Moying could sense that the fluctuations of Luo Jiun's profound energy was extremely unstable. This was the initial sign of heavily injured meridians, and furthermore his cultivation had drastically dropped, descending by a total of 2 small realms. This was a perilous situation, and if he wasn't able to save him out in time, and to get on with treatment to treat the damages on his meridians, it might have a detrimental effect towards Luo Jiun's future cultivation. When Luo Jiun saw Li Moying, he was so agitated that he cried out. He choked as he called, eldest senior brother, you really came to save me. Frankly speaking, when Luo Jiun was stuck in midair, he had already been waiting for 4 hours and in his heart, he had already lost all hope. Although the signal bomb was thrown out, but he really didn't have any hope that Li Moying would really make it in time to save him. After all, he had not chosen the proper path this time while he was in a panic and accidentally barged into the central region of the mystic region, and he had entered in too deeply. To meet with danger in such a place was like destined to be a goner. Even if it was Li Moying, if he took the risk to come save him, it would be more or less of a dead end. Luo Jiun was feeling regretful that he had thrown out the signal bomb, because when Li Moying appeared, while he was feeling touched, he was also extremely worried that he would drag Li Moying down. Eldest senior brother, you shouldn't have come. This is the central region of the cloudy Chilean mystic region. It's too dangerous. You'd better hurry on and leave. Li Moying's expression sank. What joke are you cracking? It was with great difficulty that I've finally reached this place, just to save you. You want me to leave just like that? You can also listen on. But Luo Jiun lowered his head. Even if you manage to save me, it's difficult for me to leave by myself. My leg has already been broken into several pieces and my meridians are heavily injured, so I can't even summon up any profound energy. Can't get up this cliff. This place is so far away from the peak, and even if eldest senior brother you want to pull me up, it's almost impossible, right? When Li Moying heard that, His brows rose and he secretly felt a little fortunate. When he descended, he had not expected Luo Jiyun to be so seriously injured, not even able to work up any profound energy. If he had met with this sort of ad hoc situation, it really wasn't easy to deal with at all. Luckily he brought along Huang Yueli's immortal binding rope, so things were much easier. He didn't say anything and Luo Jiyun misunderstood his intention. Eldest senior brother, I know that this matter isn't easy. You'd better go on up first, don't stay around here, it's really very dangerous. I can sense that below this cliff, there's a horrifying existence of something, and moreover, sometimes they would fly upwards. My life would be ending here anyway, so eldest senior brother, please don't be dragged down by me. Li Moying frowned as he cut him off. Alright, stop nagging. I said I can save you, so there's absolutely no problem. Y and Amp, GT, do you feel that your senior brother I don't have the means to do so? Luo Jiyun hurriedly shook his head. No, it's not that, but, stop with the buts. Where are you stuck exactly? I'll first think of a way to pull you out. Li Moying said. Luo Jiyun heard the resoluteness in his voice and he knew that once Li Moying had a decision, other than Huang Yueli, everyone else can forget about changing his mind. He could only reply, this stone on my chest is allowing me to remain stuck in between these two rocks. I don't dare to move. If I move, this rock will nudge, and if it falls, then I too will fall. Li Moying heard his description and without a change in his expression, he concentrated on sizing up the rock pile which was below Luo Jiyun. Alas, the fog below the cliff was even thicker, hence the sunlight totally didn't reflect this area, hence it was especially dark. He and Luo Jiyun were only 10 meters apart, but due to the angle and light, he was still unable to clearly see the situation at Luo Jiyun's side. Li Moying's finger flicked and a light ray flew out from his fingertip as it went around the cliff wall and flew towards Luo Jiyun, revolving one round around his body as it illuminated the surroundings, allowing Li Moying to borrow the light to check things out clearly. When Luo Jiyun saw that, his expression changed immediately and cried out urgently, eldest senior brother, don't, quickly extinguish that light. Li Moying was stunned momentarily. What? Below, Li Moying was just trying to comprehend the reason when he heard a roaring sound coming from the bottom of the cliff. Immediately a sinister-looking magical beast came flying from below the rock, directly charging towards Li Moying's direction. This magical beast was radiating a blue-purplish glow entirely, and its body was thin, but it had a pair of huge wings which spread out to a total of 10 meters. Its two bronze bell eyes popped out from the side and looked extremely ugly. Even Li Moying couldn't recognize what magical beast that was. Even with his experience from both lifetimes, he actually had not seen it before. Whereas this magical beast apparently belonged to one with the thunder attribute. The minute it saw Li Moying release a small bundle of lightning, it immediately pounced upwards as it swallowed it into its tummy in one mouthful. You can also listen on. Li Moying's thunder attribute profound energy was extremely pure, and after the magical beast swallowed it down in one gulp, its eyes instantly appeared an expression which looked like it could have a sufficient meal. The next moment, it turned towards Li Moying and its large eyes fixated on him, with an insatiable greed sizing him up, as though it was gauging what the taste of having him in its tummy would feel like. Not long later, it seemed to have completed its evaluation as it suddenly charged towards Li Moying's direction. Luo Jiyun was shocked by this strange and powerful high-leveled magical beast that his soul almost flew out as he went stiff entirely, his back drenched in sweat but yet still unable to move, worried that this magical beast would fly into a rage and swallow him alive at the next moment. Whoever knew that this magical beast totally didn't put its attention on him at all, instead it turned around and left. Luo Jiyun had yet to heave a sigh of relief when he saw it pouncing towards Li Moying. He cried out in inconsolable shock, eldest senior brother, be careful. However, the thunder-attributed magical beast's speed was shockingly fast, like a bolt of lightning. Before Luo Jiyun had finished his words, it had already appeared right in front of Li Moying. Li Moying's eyes were slightly closed as his expression was chilly, and there was no change in his expression, as though he had not sensed that austere energy which came charging towards him. It was until the magical beast's sharp beak was merely just an inch away before his wrist turned and suddenly struck out his sword. The light amethyst sword was a half-god relic and coordinated with Li Moying's powerful thunder attributed innate talent. His destructive power was so strong that it was heaven-defying. In just one strike, a dazzling thunder rainbow rushed up into the sky and instantly slashed into the magical beast's huge body. The magical beast was not able to evade in time, and its right wing was slashed broken directly as blood started to spurt outwards. Gaga dash. It gave out several husky and mournful miserable shrieks which hurt Li Moying and Luo Jiyun's eardrums. At the same time, the heavily injured magical beast grew even more infuriated as it charged towards Li Moying without a care for anything else. But alas, it was heavily injured in its prime state, so now that it had sustained such a heavy injury, all the more it wasn't his match. Li Moying struck out consecutively as he easily evaded its attacks. Magical beast shrieked out miserably as it fell down to the bottom of the valley, its whereabouts unknown. Luo Jiyun had been keeping an eye on the battle right from the start, and his heart was just jumping behind his throat, worried that at the next moment, he would see Li Moying splayed with blood. However, reality had surpassed his imagination. Li Moying had not spent too much effort and had defeated the magical beast, additionally giving it a fatal blow. Heaven knew that this magical beast was at least 7th tier. 7th-tiered magical beast's battle power was equivalent to a human's 8th stage realm practitioner. Li Moying was merely in the 7th stage realm, so this situation was equivalent to a cross-realm battle. In the end, he had not only won, but won so easily. It seemed like it was just a matter of lifting his finger that easy. As though he had the ability to manage that magical beast even if it was stronger than him by several times. What kind of situation was this? He knew that his eldest senior brother was strong, very strong, extremely strong. But wasn't this a little too heaven-defying? Luo Jiyun was still in a daze when Li Moying had already carefully stepped on the rocks and reached a place which was close to him. What daze are you still in? Let's hurry and leave this place. Give me your hand and I'll pull you up. You can also listen on. Luo Jiyun then recollected his senses as he lowered his head to take a look at those few pieces of stones which were holding him up, feeling uneasy about it. But, eldest senior brother, I'm still worried. No need to worry, I've already checked out the situation on your side, so relax. I can hold on to you, talk after you come up. Li Moying stretched out his arm and Luo Jiyun let go of his right hand which was grabbing onto the side of the rock fearfully, slowly stretching out his arm towards Li Moying. Li Moying grabbed him and a powerful gust of profound energy surged in from Luo Jiyun's arm's meridians, instantly opening access to a few meridians which were blocked due to his heavy injury. 8. Luo Jiyun cried out in shock. He only felt extreme pain from the overbearing profound energy which had invaded into his meridians as his entire body's blood seemed as though it was burning. But at the same time, he sensed that his entire body was filled with energy, and that abundance feeling of energy was something which he had never experienced even before he was injured. This kind of pain and stimulated feeling was just too strange, and Luo Jiyun suddenly felt a light and airy feeling. Li Moying howled softly, cast away those few rocks and use your strength to step on those rocks at the bottom to climb up. Quick, this condition will not last too long, otherwise your meridians will not be able to take it. It was after all an external force which was forcefully irrigated plus the fact that Luo Jiyun's meridians were still severely injured. If time dragged on, his internal injuries would become much worse. Luo Jiyun's body shook as he hurriedly summoned up the profound energy in his body which Li Moying had injected, suddenly raising his power to shake away those few pieces of rocks which held him up. In this way, his body lost support and fell down directly. Luckily, Li Moying was holding on to him tightly from the top, and Luo Jiyun followed the strength from his hand as he borrowed the strength from his feet to climb up the cliff. Clack clack. His lower body had originally suffered a fracture, and using strength forcefully right now was akin to using a file to rub in between his flesh and bones, causing Luo Jiyun in so much pain that he sweated profusely. But he clenched onto his teeth tightly as he endured the pain and continued putting in strength. Luckily the rock was rather stable, so even if it endured both people's strength, it was still rock solid. The two of them heaved a sigh of relief. Luo Jiyun was drenched in sweat totally, plus the bones on both his legs had broken into several parts. There was no way for him to stand up as he totally laid limp on the rock. Li Moying checked on the injuries on his body gloomily as he retrieved several bottles of pills from his realm ring, casting it into Luo Jiyun's arms. Quickly take the medication. These pills staunch bleeding and pain, grow flesh, replenish profound energy, everything's there. Take 3 pills per bottle right now. And the green ceramic bottle is external ointment, apply it on your wounds first. This fracture of yours is simply too serious so we can't treat it here. Take the medication first and after you feel a little better, we'll head up immediately and find a place to treat your injuries. Luo Jiyun grabbed onto the bottle tightly and after he opened the bottle, his eyes opened up wide. These are all 6th level medicinal pills. Eldest senior brother, these are just too valuable. 6th level medicinal pills. In our sect, we need a huge amount of contribution points before we can exchange for it, and it's virtually impossible to auction for these without several hundred thousands of high-grade spiritual stones in the auction house. You can also listen on. Luo Jiyun's fingers were shaking as he looked at Li Moying in disbelief. Eldest senior brother, have you taken the wrong bottles? These are such valuable pills and you actually gave me the entire bottle. Li Moying threw an undisturbed glance at him. Why talk so much rubbish when I ask you to eat? 6th level medicinal pills take effect much faster so that you can hang on. Otherwise perhaps in the mid of the mountain, you might not be able to take it and faint. By then, how am I supposed to bring you away from here? But Luo Jiyun was still flabbergasted as he looked at Li Moying in a disheveled look. He understood what eldest senior brother said but, these were all 6th level medicinal pills. Li Moying couldn't help but shook his head as he said, these pills are something which your sister-in-law asked me to bring along for you. Don't hate to part with these because all she has on her mind is to save you. If you still feel bad about it, then after you go up, thank you personally. In future when I'm not around, help me protect her properly, that will do. Ah, these pills are from sister-in-law? Armament masters are just too rich. Luo Jiyun's expression was filled with astonishment when he heard that the pills were from Huang Yueli. He was filled with envy and admiration towards her. Eldest senior brother's fiancée was really too powerful. She could even freely give out 6th level medicinal pills. Just how rich was she? In the past he felt that this young lass from South Yu Kingdom was unworthy of his eldest senior brother, but recently everything about her made him feel that his eldest senior brother seemed to have linked up with a wealthy woman. That was one of the advantages of being handsome. Li Moying felt his hair standing from his gaze and asked curiously, what are you looking at me for? Still not going to take the pills quickly? Luo Jiyun was grazed by his chilly glance as he lowered his head guiltily and grabbed the pills, stuffing it into his mouth. 6th level medicinal pills indeed had outstanding effects. Not long after Luo Jiyun had swallowed it down, his complexion seemed to have taken a better turn and the pain from his body seemed to have lessened. While waiting for him to recover, Li Moying's arms were crossed as he leaned against the cliff and questioned, what on earth happened to you? I've obviously reminded you several times after entering the Mystic Region. The central region of the Mystic Region is the most dangerous part and even 9th stage realm top exponents aren't guaranteed to be able to leave safely. You're merely in the 5th stage realm, so why did you run over here for? Don't you want to live anymore? Luo Jiyun was berated by him, feeling both self-reproach and guilt as he didn't dare to lift up his head. Eldest senior brother, it's my fault. Not only have I gotten myself into trouble, I've even caused trouble to you and sister-in-law to come and save me. But the situation then was rather chaotic, so I had no time to hesitate, just thinking of saving the person. Save the person? Li Moying's brows rose in curiosity. Save who? Luo Jiyun explained, right after I left the cave dwelling, I'd been searching for opportunities in the eastern region and later on, I met third senior sister. Li Moying's brows uncontrollably creased together. Murong Fei? Luo Jiyun nodded. Third senior sister said that she had gotten a copy of a treasure map and knew that the place on the treasure map of a cloudy Chilean senior was not too far away. But if she headed there alone, she was worried that something might happen, and so luckily she met me. So she wanted me to head over with her. So you went along with her? Ah, right. I had not thought about the location of the treasure map at that time. In the end, as we walked, we reached an area which was very near the central region. I was worried that we would get into trouble after trying to barge in, but third senior sister comforted me that she had the treasure map and the surroundings were very safe. You can also listen on. Lee Moying didn't say a word as he waited for Luo Jiyun to continue. Luo Jiyun continued, "Third senior sister's ability and knowledge are much stronger than mine, so I thought what she said would definitely not be wrong. Whoever knew that we had just reached the location of the marking on the map when an accident happened. A seventh-tiered magical beast pounced out from the forest, charging directly towards third senior sister. He raised his head and took a look at Lee Moying cautiously. Our abilities could not match up and the two of us were not the seventh-tiered magical beast's opponent, so third miss just turned around and escaped. In order to save her, I followed closely behind. But I'd not expected third senior sister to not choose her way properly and actually ran all the way into the central region. I had totally not considered too much at that time, so even though I knew it was the central region, I had no choice but to enter this place at that life-threatening moment. Later on, we were fighting as we were escaping for our lives and unknowingly, we reached the side of this cliff. I didn't look where my feet were and fell down immediately. Luckily third senior sister didn't fall down as well, but that 7th level magical beast was still pursuing after her, so I wonder if she has escaped or not." Speaking to this point, Luo Jiyun seemed to recall something as he turned his head towards Lee Moying. "Eldest senior brother, when you came over earlier, did you see third senior sister? I wonder how is she right now? Later after we go up, can you go and save her?" Lee Moying swept a glance at him as the depth of his eyes was deep and cold. "You've already turned into this state and you still want to go save her?" Luo Jiyun continued, "Eldest senior brother, I know third senior sister had been disrespectful towards sister-in-law on several occasions and she was indeed too much, but she is after all Master's daughter, so if she were to die in the cloudy Chilean mystic region, what would happen if Master blames it on us?" Lee Moying gave a cold laugh. "Even if she died here, she can only blame herself for it. Can she blame anyone else?" Luo Jiyun advised again, "Furthermore, third senior sister has a piece of treasure map in her hands and we haven't got time to go search for the treasure, so if we saved her, eldest senior brother, you wouldn't end up with nothing as well." Lee Moying narrowed his eyes as he stared at him coldly. Luo Jiyun felt a chill running down his spine from his stare as he sweated profusely, speaking in fear and trepidation. Eldest senior brother?" Lee Moying was so angry that he laughed as he looked at Luo Jiyun with a look which seemed as though he resented him for failing to meet his expectations. "I really want to split open your head to see if it's filled with water inside. You've been sold and yet still helping the seller to count money?" "Ah!" Luo Jiyun revealed a blank expression. Lee Moying burst out laughing. "How could anything ever happen to Murong Fei? She intentionally lured you over and caused you to fall down the cliff. What could have happened to her? She'd probably gone off to celebrate somewhere. As for what treasure map, it's just a lure to hook you, yet you're still thinking of going to search for some treasure. You'd better first try to think of a way to get out of here." Luo Jiyun still didn't quite understand what happened as he stood in a daze, and after pondering over it for a while, he started to become clear on what had happened. What you mean is that third senior sister lied to me? Why would she lie to me? This is very hard to say. From the looks of it, there's a 99% chance that she's trying to lure me over to save you. Now that both of us are stuck in the central region, if we can't get out, who will be the biggest beneficiary?" Lee Moying said to this point, and his brows suddenly creased as he felt alarmed. He suddenly recalled that when he came down to save him, he had left Huang Yueli alone on the top of the cliff, whereas it had not been the first attempt which Murong Fei tried to kill Huang Yueli. Yet now Leah was all by herself. You can also listen on. This absolutely gave her the chance to take advantage of the situation. Could it be that Murong Fei's target was actually Leah? Lee Moying instantly became anxious as he raised his head up towards the mountain and shouted, "Leah, are you there?" The fog around the cliff was very thick and he couldn't see the situation on the top of the mountain, so his heart was pounding hard. Luckily not too long later, Huang Yueli's voice was heard coming from the top. "I've been waiting for you guys. Have you found junior brother Luo? The fog is getting thicker and the sky is turning darker too. It's too dangerous in the central region because we don't know what will happen at night. While the sky hasn't turned dark entirely, Hurry and get up here. Her voice was emitted from such a high place, and although it sounded a little blurry, but he could still tell that her condition was quite well. Her tone was peaceful, not sounding like she was being pursued by someone. Li Moying heaved a long sigh and immediately frowned again. Looked like Murong Fei's target wasn't Huang Yueli? Then why did she do that? The more he thought, the more uneasy he got as he turned back and looked at Luo Jiyun. How is it? How much have you recovered? Luo Jiyun had a despondent look on his face. Apparently he had not recovered from the shock from being cheated by Murong Fei. He had a kind character, always assuming that all of them were from the same sect, and Murong Fei was a lady, so no matter how jealous she was, she couldn't possibly breed hatred from love, or even harming one's life. In the end, he was just too naive. Hearing Li Moying words, he suddenly recollected his senses as he replied in a hurry, I've recovered about 20% of my profound energy, only, my legs still wouldn't move, it might be hard for me to climb up. Eldest senior brother, why not you go up first? The day is indeed turning dark and little sister-in-law is not safe alone by herself. Li Moying's brows lifted and he was just about to say something. Suddenly he felt a burst of intense profound energy fluctuation attacking from behind him. Luo Jiyun's expression changed abruptly as he cried out in shock, Eldest senior brother, behind you. Li Moying's reaction was extremely swift as he immediately turned around, evaded, pulled out his sword and stuck out, all at one go. The amethyst light sword suddenly flashed past and struck the sneaky magical beast which had charged an attack behind his back. Gaga! Gaga! Miserable shrills were heard amidst the sinisterly bitter wind. After Li Moying had seen the situation in front of him clearly, his pupils suddenly contracted. This time, the magical beasts which flew upwards from the bottom of the valley had at least 7 to 8 of them, as they all had pitch-black forms. Other than the 7th-tiered magical beast that resembled an eagle, which had been killed by him, there were several other different shapes of flying magical beasts, most of the species which he had never seen before. Moreover, in this batch of magical beasts, the lowest tiered was 6th tier and the highest had already reached 8th tier. In actually fact, if there was only one 8th-tiered magical beast, he wasn't afraid. But now there were so many magical beasts which surrounded them. Moreover, from the saturation of the fog below the cliff, it was unknown to how many other magical beasts were there hiding there. This situation made Li Moying feel an immense feeling of crisis. Luo Jiyun was scared out of his wits as his complexion turned pearly white while his entire body started to tremble. These magical beasts would gather over the minute they sense profound energy fluctuations. I met one when I first fell down and was almost killed by it. It must have been that magical beast which you killed earlier which caused the intense fluctuations, which is why so many of them were attracted over. These magical beasts' eyes were all drooling as though Li Moying was some scrumptious meal. You can also listen on. Li Moying faced so many high-leveled magical beasts, but he wasn't the least flustered. The expression on his face turned graver as he started to work up the profound energy throughout his body, accumulating the power while waiting, like a taut bow. The magical beasts seemed to sense the dangerous imposing manner which was extruding from him, as they didn't dare to make any unnecessary movements momentarily. Both sides were at a standstill for a period of time, and Luo Jiyun almost forgot to breathe as his heart was beating so fast that it almost jumped out. Suddenly, the magical beasts seemed as though they had observed enough, and losing their patience, they cried out Gaga several times and all of them pounced towards Li Moying at the same time. Dark shadows in the sky were about to drown Li Moying's body completely in a blink of an eye. Under the enclosure of the huge wings from those magical beasts, Li Moying's body seemed so tiny, as though it would be crushed to dust any time. Luo Jiyun was so scared that he daren't look, faltering as he shut his eyes. But at the next moment, he heard miserable cries from the birds, ringing throughout the entire valley. Luo Jiyun hastily opened his eyes as he saw bolts of lightning descend from the sky, turning the dark sky as bright as broad daylight. All the lightning converged into a piece of blue-purplish lightning as it carried a powerful aura, gathering into a huge light ball in Li Moying's hands. Luo Jiyun's heart was alarmed as he trembled in fear while looking at that light ball. Just looking at it alone, he was able to sense the shockingly terrifying energy contained in it. Those flying magical beasts which were charging towards him sensed danger, and their speed suddenly decreased as it flapped its wings, hovering still in midair, as though it didn't know if it should continue or proceed ahead. However, Li Moying didn't give them any chance to hesitate, as the light ball in his hands had accumulated a vast amount of energy in an extremely short span of time. Following that, his eyes were like electricity as he gave a sharp shout, throwing out that light ball towards that group of magical beast. The light ball shot to the front at an extremely swift speed, shocking those magical beasts so much that it all dispersed while escaping, but it was too late for it to escape now. The light ball had exploded in the middle of the magical beasts, and the thunder-attributed energy which was contained in it exploded in an instant. A boom sound reverberated and followed that were sharp cries and miserable shrieks from those flying magical beasts, as well as Luo Jiyun sniffed and somehow felt that he smelled the fragrance of roasted meat. Among the 8 flying magical beasts, the 2 which were in the front were instantly heavily injured as it shrilled in shock while it fell into the valley. Although the remaining 6 were slightly injured, but they were all awed by Li Moying's move, as all of them scurried backwards in shock, not daring to get any closer. But although they had all temporarily retreated, they did not leave at all, merely hiding in a slightly further place, as all of them kept a watchful eye on Li Moying. The greed in their eyes had not lessened, instead it increased. Evidently, the huge thunder-attributed energy which Li Moying lured had shocked them, but on the other hand, it also attracted their lust. Such powerful and pure energy was something which these magical beasts had hoped for in a long time. Although it was dangerous, but with such a huge temptation in front of their eyes, which of them could bear to leave like that? Li Moying frowned slightly on seeing these magical beasts' covetous lust in their eyes. He knew that things were not going to go well. Earlier the energy which he had attracted was much stronger than before, and later on there would be even more magical beasts which were attracted by it. In order to push them back, he would need to erupt an even stronger energy, which would continue to lure new magical beasts. If this continued, when would there be an end to it? You can also listen on. He immediately turned his head back and said to Luo Jiyun, "All right, stop staying in a daze. Take this opportunity now when they don't dare to approach us. We must leave immediately." Luo Jiyun understood that the situation was in peril and immediately nodded his head. "I understand." Actually, many wounds on his body were still in extreme pain, and his meridians were full of holes, so he could not muster up his profound energy at all. But he also knew that if they don't leave now, they would definitely end up as the magical beast's food later on. So he forcibly summoned up his breath as he clenched his teeth, trying to prop up that broken body of his and follow Li Moying to leave this place. However, he had just moved a little distance when he couldn't help but gave a miserable cry as his entire body profused with sweat, falling onto the ground. Luo Jiyun had already tried his utmost best to get up, but certain things were just not curbed based on his own determination. The bones in his feet had already been broken into several segments, and he was totally unable to work up his profound energy, so no one would be able to use their strength to move like that. Luo Jiyun's expression turned deadly pale. Eldest senior brother, I really cannot move. You'd better go on up first." I cannot drag you down." Li Moying frowned. "What silly things are you saying? Ria, really? Those magical beasts are coveting eldest senior brother, your profound energy, which is why they gathered around here. Perhaps after you left, they would automatically disperse. Those magical beasts would not be interested in a half-dead cripple like me, so rest assured." Luo Jiyun knew that he was definitely a goner and didn't want to drag Li Moying down, so he intentionally said this. But in actual fact, anyone knew that if he continued staying here, he would absolutely die. Just at this moment, Huang Yueli's anxious voice was heard from the top of the cliff. Moying, how are you now? Why are there such terrifying cries coming from below? There's such strong thunder-attributed fluctuations as well. Are you being attacked?" Luo Jiyun looked at Li Moying's expression, which had instantly turned worried, and gave a ghastly smile. "Eldest senior brother, quickly head up. Little sister-in-law is still waiting for you up there. When these magical beasts get tangled with you, then you'd really not be able to leave. Who will take care of little sister-in-law?" He knew that for Huang Yueli, Li Moying would definitely not allow himself to die here, so, "Shut up." Li Moying called out sharply to stop him from continuing. Following that, he shot up like an arrow as he unleashed the immortal binding rope from his waist, which Huang Yueli had stuffed to him, as he tied it around Luo Jiyun's waist. Luo Jiyun looked at his actions in a daze. Eldest senior brother, this is, Li Moying narked, stop moving around, I'll get your sister-in-law to pull you up. Ah! Luo Jiyun was puzzled beyond words. Li Moying had already raised up his head as he shouted to the top, Leah, we're fine. Jiyun is seriously injured and he totally can't move. Use the immortal binding rope and pull him up first. Ah! Huang Yueli's shocked voice was heard and immediately after, alright, secure him tightly and pull the rope 3 times consecutively. I'll then start pulling him up. Li Moying's movements were very fast and within a few breaths of time, he had already tied Luo Jiyun into a rice dumpling. After checking the knot on Luo Jiyun, he pulled the rope consecutively for 3 times. Luo Jiyun originally couldn't move and now that he was tied up so securely, he felt as though he was like a piece of pork belly which was waiting to be butchered by others. His expression turned slightly green. Eldest senior brother, are you certain that little sister-in-law is able to pull me up? You can also listen on. Li Moying gave him a hard stare. Stop acting silly, your sister-in-law is a 5th stage realm practitioner. How heavy are you? Is she not able to pull you? Saying that, Luo Jiyun's body was lifted up by a chunk and the speed was swift. Furthermore, it was very stable. Apparently the person who pulled the rope had a lot of strength, with remaining energy left over. His body kept on rising up, bit by bit. Right now, he was no longer concerned about his own safety as he turned to look at Li Moying. Just one look and his expression changed abruptly, because those few flying magical beasts which were hiding in alertness far away had actually crowded around him again, and furthermore, several new magical beasts appeared in the middle of the sky. Eldest senior brother, you'd better let sister-in-law let me down and pull you up first. You're in this state, what will happen later? Li Moying swept him a glance and with a biting cold tone, go up. Don't drag my leg. I naturally have my own means to get out of danger. But Luo Jiyun wanted to say more, but Huang Yueli's speed in pulling him up was very fast as his body was lifted yet another distance again. The distance between him and Li Moying was pulled away fast, almost to the point of not able to see each other's figures any longer. In the thick fog, he could only see Li Moying facing that group of magical beasts yet again, and the cold but aloof expression on that good-looking face was filled with a thick murderous intent. Following that, he continued to rise up and could no longer see Li Moying anymore. Not long after, Luo Jiyun went past the thick fog and could see the peak of the cliff indistinctly. Out of his expectations, Huang Yueli was not the one who tugged at the rope tightly, but she was seated by the side of the cliff as her hands propped up her cheeks, using a pair of watery large eyes staring anxiously and in anticipation towards the bottom of the cliff. By her side was a small-sized pinion mechanism and there was a piece of magical beast crystal core which was supplying the energy. The rope which was tied onto Luo Jiyun was linked to that mechanism as he was pulled up bit by bit. Luo Jiyun gasped with his mouth wide open, thinking to himself that it was no wonder that the speed of his ascent was so uniform. So, this was indeed the ability of an armament master. Huang Yueli looked at his figure and gave a shrill of joy. Junior brother Luo, you've successfully gotten out of the perilous situation. That's great. But following that, her vision swept below Luo Jiyun as her heart thumped hard, revealing a disappointed expression. Where's Moying? He still hasn't come up. Luo Jiyun heard her question and his heart pounded wildly as the scenario of Li Moying's chilly expression while facing that group of magical beasts appeared right in front of his eyes. He simply could not imagine that if he was in Li Moying's position, what kind of outcome would that be? He would probably have died without a full corpse by now. But the person who was covering a retreat below was Li Moying. Would eldest senior brother be able to successfully come through? Luo Jiyun usually believed in his eldest senior brother a lot, but today, he didn't dare to guarantee that Li Moying would be able to win. Gazing at Huang Yueli's little face which was filled with anticipation, Luo Jiyun's throat seemed to be stuffed as he totally couldn't make any sound at all. He really didn't know how he should answer this question. Should he tell Huang Yueli that eldest senior brother had thrown himself into a precarious situation in order to save him and the chances of survival were very limited? Just how much of a shock would that be to his little sister-in-law? Huang Yueli saw that he didn't reply and somehow had an ominous premonition as her lips pursed up. She was just about to ask again, but at this moment, something happened. She suddenly sensed a strong wind rising from her back and a burst of intense and sharp profound energy was casted towards her direction swiftly. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli's attention was entirely placed on Luo Jiyun, who was on the cliff and had not expected anyone to suddenly attack her from behind. She had originally still maintained a bit of alertness, but after staying on the top of the cliff for such a long time, she had not met with any danger, hence there was a silent consent that it was absolutely safe at the top of the cliff. At the current moment, to be attacked suddenly really could be said as she was caught totally unprepared. However, her experience in battles was especially abundant and her response time was also extremely swift. At the critical moment, she swiftly evaded to the right side as she rolled onto the ground, avoiding the fatal strike which was casted towards her back. Huang Yueli rolled onto the ground for a moment and immediately got up, thinking of counterattacking. But by the time she turned around to look at the person, she realized that the person did not follow up with the attack but instead turned around heading towards the small mechanism which she had refined, attempting to cut the rope using a curved knife in his hand. Stop it! Huang Yueli's eyes turned wide as she called out sharply, gathering her profound energy and casting it towards the other party. However, that person came prepared and his actions were extremely swift. Before Huang Yueli could arrive in time, his long sword blade had already fallen onto the rope. A plop sound was heard. The long sword was swept with profound energy as it slashed heavily onto it. Even the ground was driven a deep mark as dust and mud flew everywhere. Luo Jiyun also realized that something had happened on the top of the cliff, but he was helpless right now. Li Moying had tied him up tightly into a bundle to prevent him from falling and he was totally immovable. Of course, even if he wasn't tied up, he was no different from a cripple, so he couldn't help Huang Yueli anyways. Seeing that the other party wanted to cut off the rope, Luo Jiyun was scared witless that his heart almost jumped out from his mouth. He witnessed the blade of the knife falling down towards the rope and shut his eyes tightly, awaiting the drop into the valley. He had not expected that after Li Moying expended so much work, but yet he was still going to die here. But out of his expectations, Luo Jiyun waited for a while but had not felt the gravity pulling fall. On the contrary, he was lifted up by a distance again. Luo Jiyun hurriedly opened his eyes and saw the masked man who had struck also dazed on the spot, apparently not expecting this rope to be so durable. A 5th-tier upper-grade profound weapon knife slashing down so hard and it actually didn't break off. Huang Yueli took the opportunity while the masked man was in a daze to take out a large quantity of thunder flame balls, throwing it towards him. The masked man was shocked by the sudden obstruction and didn't manage to respond in time. By the time he was aware of the danger, it was already too late. Huang Yueli's secret weapon exploded consecutively in front of him. He evaded to the left and right but was still bombed several times. With many injuries on his body, he had no choice but to retreat continuously. Huang Yueli immediately rushed upwards towards the mechanism. At this particular moment, she only had one thought in mind, which was to pull Luo Jiyun up immediately. Although the immortal binding rope could resist against profound weapons which were 5th-tiered and below, but the profound weapon in the masked man's hand was a 5th-tiered upper-grade weapon. The immortal binding rope could still resist against 1 or 2 slashes, but if the number of slashes increased, it would still break off. So she made a prompt decision immediately. Huang Yueli bent down and stretched out her arm to grab the immortal binding rope while infusing her profound energy into it. After that she used her strength to swing the rope, swinging up the rope into the sky. The masked man's eyes flashed past a shocked look as he cried out in alarm, "It's bad. Quickly stop her. We can't let her pull Li Moying up. You can also listen on." Hearing that, Huang Yueli's heart faintly felt a sliver of puzzlement. Li Moying? Why would they mention Li Moying? The one she was pulling up, wasn't he Luo Jiyun? However, before she could give it any further thought, she sensed another burst of profound energy attacking from her right back. It was directed at the fatal spot of below her ribs. This move was extremely meticulous. If she didn't let go of the immortal binding rope to block this move, then she would be struck in the ribs, and this would definitely cause hemorrhage. This was a fatal spot concerning her life and death. But if she was entangled with the person, that would give the masked man a chance to continue slashing the rope. Luo Jiun was originally seriously injured, so if he were to fall down from such a height, there was no way that he wouldn't die. This person apparently thought that he was very smart, as the moment he drew out his sword, he opened his mouth and talked. Miss Bai, withdraw your hand. For a man, giving up your life really isn't worth it. You have such a bright future in front of you, so why do this? This voice sounded extremely familiar, and Huang Yueli's mind seemed to ignite a spark as she seemed to have guessed the identity of that person. The movements in her hands paused for a moment, and the strength used to swing the rope seemed to have weakened. The person who came felt delighted, as he thought that his threat had developed some use, so the move he struck out wasn't that vicious. After all, his motive was to kill Li Moying and not to kill Huang Yueli. He revealed a smile on his face, but before he gave a broader smile, he saw Huang Yueli bent down. The person looked at her in surprise. Huang Yueli's finger drew an arc on the ground and coincidentally drew out a series of array patterns as she softly cried, "Break." While the person's face was still in a daze, he felt the earth which he was standing on suddenly loosening as he sunk downwards directly. His body lost balance and he landed head first onto the ground. The person tried his best to steady himself on his feet. But in this way, it hindered a chance for battle. Huang Yueli re-established her strength as she started swinging the rope once again. Luo Jiun's body was swung out of the pathway along with the rope, drawing out a half-moon arc in mid-air before he crashed heavily onto the ground not too far away. At the same time, Huang Yueli rushed towards him immediately. She knew that Luo Jiun would not have any battle strength now, and if the person who tried to stop her from pulling him up wanted to kill him, it was as easy as lifting a finger. So Luo Jiun required her full protection right now. Huang Yueli stretched out her hand and patted heavily onto Luo Jiun's back, and the rope on him loosened. Whereas Huang Yueli herself had retrieved her icy jade zither from the sky phoenix ring, and her fingers lightly plucked at the strings as she began to play. The urgent zither sounds rang continuously as though silver bottles broke abruptly, intimidating the will of the people. But just at this moment, the person on the side suddenly stopped his attacks as he used an extremely astonished tone, crying out, "What's going on? It's not Li Moying." The masked man heard that and stopped as he gazed behind Huang Yueli. He really isn't. What's going on? How come Li Moying didn't come up, but instead he sent this trashy Luo Jiun up instead? Could it be that he's still at the bottom of the cliff? Speaking of that, he seemed to have thought of something as he couldn't help but laughed out loudly. That's right, I know already. Li Moying is definitely still at the bottom of the mountain, and he should have met with trouble, so he can't come up. Could it be that we don't even need to lift a hand and he directly died down there? You can also listen on. Huang Yueli heard their tone and voice, and her heart jolted as the tune that she was playing on the zither suddenly paused for a moment as it was totally messed up. She bluntly stopped as she stared at the duo in shock. You are Leng Yifeng. And Li Lingchuan. The both of them. Since when have you colluded together? It wasn't anything strange for either one of them to want to scheme on Li Moying, but now the both of them are actually taking action together. How could this be possible? Celestial Light Sect and Green Cloud Sect's relationship was at loggerheads. After the two men's identities were exposed, they exchanged glances and directly stopped hiding as they removed the disguise used to conceal their identities. You deserve to be called Miss Bai. Your eyesight is really extraordinary. We've been exposed in such a short amount of time. Li Lingchuan originally wanted to be the mastermind behind the scenes, but whoever knew that Huang Yueli had exposed his identity in such a short while? He was extremely unreconciled as the words he said were full of spunk. Leng Yifeng pursed his lips as his expression was chilly, not saying a single word. Huang Yueli stared at them in a biting cold stare. It indeed is the both of you. I was just suspecting why junior brother Luo would suddenly run into the central region for no apparent reason and even got trapped with a serious injury. Someone must be behind all these. I'd not expected you two to be the culprit. Li Lingchuan, No matter what, your sect master Murong's beloved disciple, how could you be like Murong Ni, becoming a traitor of the sect? Li Lingchuan laughed. Traitor? Your words are too harsh. Murong Ni was a lackey for Green Cloud sect, which is really called the sect's traitor. I'm merely cooperating with Mr. Lung. No matter how I see it, we're merely benefiting from each other's relationship. Huang Yueli didn't wish to hear his denial and bluntly asked, stop all these rubbish talk. What do you want to do by luring me and Moying over? Do you want to take Moying's life? Huang Yueli had seen plenty of internal strife in the sect and originally suspected that there was something fishy behind all these. Now on seeing Li Lingchuan's stance, her heart swiftly analyzed and deduced around 80 to 90% of the cause and effects. Not waiting for Li Lingchuan's answer, she continued, let me guess, junior brother Li made a move this time. Could it be for Moying's young sect master's position? I've never expected that a mere celestial light sect's young sect master status will make you betray the sect, coming out with such an underhanded method. A sect like Celestial Light sect in Sky Emperor City isn't even considered as third-rated. It's only trash like you who treat it so importantly. Li Lingchuan's thoughts had been seen through by her as his eyes widened in disbelief. Right before this, he knew that Huang Yueli's innate talent was outstanding and she had unparalleled beauty, but he had not expected Huang Yueli's thoughts to be so profound or that her foresight was so sharp. Those shameful thoughts couldn't mask her eyes at all as she easily saw through it, without any concealment. This feeling seemed like he was stripped of all his clothes in the bustling city and made to run around naked, which made him both angry and embarrassed. Furthermore, under Huang Yueli's deep and chilly gaze, Li Lingchuan uncontrollably shuddered as he suddenly felt an icy sensation in his heart. At that moment, he had an illusion that the person he was facing was Li Moying himself. Huang Yueli's imposing manner which radiated around her was totally not any lesser than Li Moying. After being dazed for a moment did Li Lingchuan regain his senses as he cried out in a disheveled state, "How daring of you! Celestial Light sect is merely a third-rate sect. You can also listen on." When Li Lingchuan heard that, he immediately started laughing. Ha 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 ha, this is really funny. Are you still dreaming that Li Moying could still come back? Huang Yueli's lips curled coldly as she didn't say a word. Li Lingchuan complacently said, you totally don't understand the situation below the cliff. No matter how capable Li Moying is, it is hard for him to get out of the perilous situation. Otherwise, no matter how precipitous this cliff is, it would merely take a quarter of an hour for him to climb up. Why is it that he still hasn't climbed up till now? When Huang Yueli heard that, she suddenly felt uneasy. That's right, since she pulled Luo Jiyun up to expose Li Lingchuan and Leng Yifeng's identity, it had already been 1 hour but Li Moying still hadn't appeared. Instead, the lighting bolts in the sky were falling one after another, more and more concentrated. Her vision shot towards Luo Jiyun and upon seeing his ghastly expression with his forehead filled with sweat, his eyes bore a hopeless expression. Li Lingchuan also noticed him and immediately laughed. Look, my beloved fifth junior brother obviously knows the situation down the cliff. When you came up, Li Moying must have been tangled with those magical beasts down the cliff, isn't it? Aren't those magical beasts' abilities much stronger than your imagination? Huang Yueli frowned slightly, not quite believing in Li Lingchuan's words. However, Luo Jiyun's trembling body had already verified Li Lingchuan's words. Li Lingchuan continued, to tell you the truth, I have a cloudy Chilean mystic regions map in my hand. It stated very clearly on the map that below this cliff is the central region of the mystic region. It is filled with dangers here and there are various high-leveled magical beasts. It's even rumored that there are many other traps, so even if a 9th stage realm practitioner falls in, he can forget about leaving this place alive. Although Li Moying's innate talent isn't bad, but he's just in the 7th stage realm. How could he possibly leave that place? Saying that, he turned towards Luo Jiyun. Have I said it correctly? Fifth junior brother. Luo Jiyun's expression flushed white and he looked as though he was about to cry, choking as he spoke. Little sister-in-law, I've done you wrong. It's all because I'm so dumb that I can't even figure out such a simple trap. Not to mention that I've been schemed, I've even dragged eldest senior brother down for coming to save me. We had been tangled with 10 over high-leveled magical beasts earlier, and he personally stopped those magical beasts in order to let me come up first. Now, hearing Luo Jiyun's words, Li Lingchuan laughed so much that he couldn't stand straight. Hear that? What I said wasn't wrong, eh? Li Moying, he's definitely dead. Huang Yueli's expression was gloomy as her lips were tightly pursed. Her eyelids drooped down and she didn't say a single word, not knowing what she was thinking about. Li Lingchuan continued, Miss Bai, now that things have come to such a pass, Li Moying is already dead. There's no point for you to keep tangling on this. We only want Li Moying's life and not to harm you at all, so you need not be so tightly strung. He turned back and gestured towards Leng Yifeng's direction. Look at that Master Leng, he's one talented person. You probably don't know about this, right? Master Leng is a 9th grade talented peerless genius and is not only Green Cloud Sect's eldest disciple, he's even a direct descendant of the Leng family. His status is much higher than Li Moying's. Why don't you just follow him instead? Woman, isn't following any man the same? As long as the other party is powerful enough. It's your honor that Master Leng wants a second-hand good like you. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli had yet to say anything when Luo Jiyun couldn't stop himself from cursing. Despicable. Utterly shameless. Second senior brother, I've really misjudged you. You've caused eldest senior brother's death and even helped Leng Yifeng to dominate Lil sister-in-law. Under the heavens, how is it possible to even find such a shameless person like you? Luo Jiyun was so angry that he kept shaking, and at the same time he was feeling guilty and blamed himself. Things had developed to such a step all because he was just too dumb. If it was possible, he really wanted to end in mutual destruction with Li Lingchuan and the others. But unfortunately, he was now like a dead dog, bundled up and thrown into a corner, not being able to do anything at all. Li Lingchuan's expression changed as he turned his head and gave him a malicious stare. Shut up, what thing are you? Is it even your turn to lecture me? Luo Jiyun retorted, my ability is indeed not up to you, but at least I still know what is integrity and honor. You dare to even do such low-life things yet still afraid of me cursing you? You caused a fellow from the sect to die and coerced sister-in-law. You'd definitely get retribution. 8. Li Lingchuan was originally feeling guilt, and hearing his curses, he felt even more frustrated. He waved his sleeves and a burst of profound energy flew towards Luo Jiyun as it struck him on the chest in one blow. Luo Jiyun flew out and threw up blood consecutively, smashing heavily onto the ground. He was originally heavily injured and now it was another injury on top of the previous, so when he landed on the ground, he was panting more than he was breathing and it looked as though he was on his last breath, but that pair of eyes stared at Li Lingchuan intensely, unresigned. Li Lingchuan stared at him sinisterly. I asked you to shut up, didn't you hear me? On account that you're my junior brother, I can forgive you for the last time for offending me. As long as you swear your loyalty towards me in future, I can let bygones be bygones, otherwise, pooey. Luo Jiyun immediately spat out a mouthful of bloody spit. Li Lingchuan abruptly had a change in colors, looking for death. He was flabbergasted as his imposing manner rose swiftly around him. With profound energy concentrated in his palm, he casted a vicious hand towards Luo Jiyun directly. Based on Luo Jiyun's current condition, if he was stuck by this move, he would probably die on the spot. However, this profound energy was stopped in the middle of its path. Luo Jiyun had originally shut his eyes waiting for death, but he didn't feel the expected pain. Instead, a profound energy clashing explosive sound rang by the side of his ears. Following that, a young lady's tender angry voice rang, enough. Li Lingchuan, Luo Jiyun is already severely hurt and isn't of any threat to you, why must you kill to the last one? Li Lingchuan's move had utilized 70% of his power and he had not expected the 5th stage realm Huang Yueli to be able to stop it. He narrowed his eyes as an astonished look flashed past. Indeed, the woman who Master Leng and Li Moying took fancy on. For you who's able to block my move, you're indeed considered to have outstanding innate talent. It's not hard if you want me to let Luo Jiyun go. As long as you nod your head now and leave with Master Leng, I promise that I won't make a move against Luo Jiyun. Luo Jiyun immediately cried out in shock, no way, Lil sister-in-law, just ignore me. I rather die than to let you suffer such humiliation. Hearing that, Leng Yifeng uncontrollably got angry out of embarrassment. Indeed, you are seeking death. Why is following me a humiliation? So many young ladies want to enter my Leng family's door and this master cannot be bothered. Miss Bai, as long as you nod your head to return to Sky Emperor City with me, I will guarantee Master Luo's safety and also be responsible for treating all the injuries on him. You can also listen on. Leng Yifeng also started to use Luo Jiyun as an excuse. He realized that Luo Jiyun being alive had become Huang Yueli's soft and as long as she cared about Luo Jiyun's life and death, then there would be the possibility of her being threatened. However, Huang Yueli bit her lips tightly, not saying a single word. Leng Yifeng felt that it was a little strange. Huang Yueli had always been a sharp-tongued lady and usually when she met such things, it would be strange if she didn't answer back sarcastically, so how could she possibly remain silent? Could it be that because of Li Moying's death, she suffered too huge a blow and decided that she should consider carefully if she should follow himself? Before Leng Yifeng had time to be happy, he suddenly heard Li Lingchuan's cry of surprise. You, what are you doing? Right before her eyes, a blinding flame suddenly lit up, slashing the empty space. Wherever the flame went, the warmth of the surroundings rose steadily, so scorching hot as though it was about to burn everything into ashes. Along this burst of flame was an overbearing and raging fire-attributed energy as it flew out of Huang Yueli's hand, charging straight towards Li Lingchuan's face. At the same time, several thin cicada-like daggers were thrown out all at one go, splitting into upper, middle and lower directions, obstructing all avenues of Leng Yifeng's retreat. Huang Yueli's move was simply too sudden and as she had stayed in a daze earlier, both men thought that she was about to be convinced as they assumed that she was considered what conditions she would like to raise, hence they totally had not expected her to make a move at all. So this round, both men were caught unprepared. Li Lingchuan hastily evaded the attack, forgoing his image as he rolled along the ground for half a round, but he was still burnt by the flame as his right shoulder's clothes were all burnt into nothing, with an evident burnt mark on his flesh. Whereas Leng Yifeng was also struck. His left thigh was slashed by the dagger and was bleeding non-stop. But even so, Li Lingchuan and Leng Yifeng were genuine 6th-stage realm end-stage top experts and their foundations were stable, absolutely not a half-pass standard like Murong Fei. Even though the both of them were caught in a sneak attack, but their reactions were still swift as they managed to evade their vital points from being hit, and at the same time putting out a defensive stance while preparing to counterattack at any point of time. Later on, Huang Yueli couldn't find any chance to make a move. Li Lingchuan laughed chillingly. By Ruoli, you're rather amazing, still know how to do a sneak attack while everything is still messy. But don't get it wrong, you're just at an elementary 5th stage realm cultivation and no matter how talented you are you intending to challenge 2 6th stage realm practitioners at the same time? Do you really think we're idiots? You cannot run, so stop the useless struggles. You'd better lie flat and obediently serve Master Leng, so that your future days would be. He said a load of words delightfully. But before he could finish talking, he heard a sinister and biting cold voice from his back. You say, you want my fiancé to go serve who? Who else could it be? Are you silly? Of course it's Master Leng, Li Lingchuan replied in a sarcastic tone. But after he spoke out, he suddenly realized that the voice sounded very familiar, not like Luo Jiyun's voice, but... Li Lingchuan's heart instantly jumped to the back of his throat as cold sweat started to roll down his spine. Surely not, right? Not possible, right? He must have heard wrongly, right? He didn't dare to turn his head back, but from the expression on Leng Yifeng's face, it had already explained everything. Li. Young sect master Li, how is it possible that you... When, meeting Li Moying's pair of deep and pitch-dark eyes, Leng Yifeng stammered as he couldn't even finish his sentence properly. You can also listen on. Li Moying stared coldly at the duo in front of him as his eyes were filled with a murderous air. His vision fell on Huang Yueli and on seeing an obvious patch of dust on her clothes, his face sunk even more. Junior brother Li, Master Leng, I got to admit that I admire your guts. Did you really think that a few magical beasts would be able to claim my life? You actually dare to hurt Leah, you're really seeking death. The minute his words were spoken, Li Lingchuan couldn't curb the terror in his inner heart as his legs softened and he plopped directly on the ground. He trembled while explaining, Eldest senior brother, misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. Miss Bai's clothes were stained with dust, that's because she grazed against the ground, absolutely not hurt. Really not. Huang Yueli lowered her head to find that there were indeed plenty of dirty spots on her clothes as she couldn't help but frown. She really wasn't hurt, but in a moment of urgency earlier, in order to save Luo Jiyun, she rolled around on the ground, hence the dust stained her clothes. But whoever didn't knew that the little priestess of the mythical flame palace loved to be beautiful the most. Being dirty made her extremely unhappy. So she pouted and started to complain to Li Moying, they're really arrogant earlier. One by one, they said you were dead and asked me to quickly remarry. They even said that Leng Yifeng was much stronger than you, so following him was the best choice. When Li Lingchuan heard that, he was so scared that his soul almost flew away. Who didn't know that Li Moying cared most about this little fiancé of his? The charge of wanting Huang Yueli to remarry was much more serious than scheming against Li Moying himself. No, it's not like that. I saw Miss Bai too upset. So, in order to comfort her, Luo Jiyun couldn't take it any longer as he shouted out loudly, eldest senior brother, don't listen to his rubbish. You weren't around earlier and the two of them had already admitted. They wanted to harm you. Second senior brother did so to snatch your young sect master position while Leng Yifeng had his eyes on Lil sister-in-law for a long time. When he said that, Li Lingchuan and Leng Yifeng both stared at him flabbergasted as they wished they could use their gazes to kill him. Originally the both of them were thinking of how to deny, but in the end, they were exposed by Luo Jiyun in a few words. But in front of Li Moying, they couldn't do anything to Luo Jiyun at all. At this moment, Luo Jiyun's injuries were extremely serious and his entire body was in so much pain as though he was being roasted over fire, but his feelings were totally different from earlier. He knew that as long as Li Moying was around, there wouldn't be any problems. No matter how Li Lingchuan and the others schemed, they had no way to fight against Li Moying's absolute ability. I was just thinking, why didn't Lil sister-in-law make a sound earlier? Luo Jiyun suddenly thought of something as he laughed. So, you two were exchanging messages secretly earlier, discussing how to allow eldest senior brother to come up safely? Whereas these two dumb fools actually thought that Lil sister-in-law really had a change of heart. That delighted look, ha ha ha, you guys are really humorous. Huang Yueli's lips curled up slightly. You've been dumb for an entire day and now you've suddenly turned a little smarter. Luo Jiyun broke out in sweat. This. Lil sister-in-law, I know I'm in the wrong. Li Lingchuan and Leng Yifeng then realized that now. No wonder Huang Yueli suddenly struck out against them, attacking the both of them at the same time. She wasn't intending to defeat two sixth-stage realm practitioners but had already discussed with Li Moying on the next step. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli's sudden attack attracted their attention and Li Moying took the opportunity to get up from the cliff. No wonder his appearance was so silent. Li Lingchuan and Leng Yifeng self-professed that they were first-rate talents in South Sky region, but yet they hadn't even sensed a single bit until Li Moying opened his mouth to realize his existence. You all. Li Lingchuan's teeth were chattering. He suddenly recalled his delighted and satisfied look earlier and he wished he could severely give himself a tight slap. What kind of ability did Li Moying have and just how intelligent and resourceful Huang Yueli was? This wasn't his first day finding out, but he was still so careless thinking that he had easily gotten his way. He scarcely realized that these two had long decoded their trap which they had specially created. That show which they had performed, in their eyes, was probably no different from two clowns dancing. Li Lingchuan's face flushed red, feeling that he had been slapped a few hundred slaps on his face on the spot, so embarrassed to the max. Furthermore, the most serious of it all was that his scheme had failed and he had fallen into Li Moying's hands, so his life had a bleak future. When Li Lingchuan thought of this, he got even more terrified. At this very moment, he was no longer concerned about pride or whatever matters, knowing that as long as he could continue living, no matter how lowly or shameless he had to be, he must continue living. He turned his head back and in an instant, he knelt down and kept kowtowing to Li Moying with all his might. At the same time, his tears and mucus started flowing down altogether. Eldest senior brother, I'm wrong, I really know I'm wrong. I've done all these because I was possessed, and I also don't know why I would suddenly do such a thing. I don't dare to, I absolutely would not dare to in future. Eldest senior brother, on account that we're brothers from the same sect, please spare my life. I will work extremely hard to redeem my mistake from now on. He tried his best to plead for mercy as he tried till his liver and guts were cut to pieces, simply to the point of himself being touched by his act. However, Li Moying still remained silent, only looking down at him from the top as he turned around and walked to Huang Yueli's side. Leah, are you really not hurt? Huang Yueli shook her head, but she appeared to be extremely upset. I'm all right, but my clothes are so dirty, I'm sure it cannot be cleaned. This is made out of wild silk yarn, extremely comfortable and beautiful, and I especially love it. Li Moying touched her face as he looked at her tsundere expression, and the huge stone pressing on his chest was finally lifted as a warm feeling filled his heart. Heaven knew that when he was at the cliff before facing so many high-leveled magical beasts, the most fearful thing was not that he might die, but, if anything happened to him, what would happen to his Leah? The two of them had used an entire 2 lifetimes before they were able to connect in one heart and mind like this. They had yet to get married and had not reached the peak together. If they were forced to separate in 2 worlds again, he would not be resigned to it. Luckily, he managed to get rid of those magical beasts successfully, and his Leah was not hurt any bit. Hearing her soft grumbles, he could only thank heavens for this. There was nothing much better than this. You can also listen on. Li Moying gave a deep laugh. No matter, we can always buy another set of clothes if it's dirty. After we leave the Mystic region, I'll accompany you to Sky Cloud City's biggest clothes store. Huang Yueli barely replied. All right then. Li Moying looked at her pouty little face as he wanted to lean over and gave her a kiss, but he also knew that this wasn't the right moment, so he forced himself to suppress the impulse to get intimate with her. While the two of them were talking, Li Lingchuan continued to kowtow. At this present moment, he had already kowtowed for more than 100 times, and his head banged against the uneven ground and had long started to bleed. Blood started to flow down his cheek and jaw, making his appearance look extremely malicious. Li Moying's ignorance made him even more humiliated as he was burning up inside, but he didn't dare to stop for fear that Li Moying felt that he was insincere. Li Lingchuan clenched his teeth as he bore with the rage inside, still continuing to kowtow, but kept repeating in his mind again and again, Li Moying, just you wait. If the day comes when you fall into my hands, I would absolutely not let you off and will get back at you for the humiliation which you have given me today. Li Moying didn't even bother to take a side glance at him. He naturally knew just how infuriated Li Lingchuan was, but so what about that? He totally didn't need to bother about this clown. Continuous dull knocking sounds were heard in the area where Li Lingchuan was. Li Moying, however, looked towards Leng Yifeng's direction. Leng Yifeng was actually standing very near Huang Yueli, thinking of using the chance to get close to Huang Yueli. If she insisted on not obeying him, then he was prepared to use his advantage of his potential to the fullest, forcing her instead. But too bad, before his plan had even materialized, Li Moying appeared. Leng Yifeng took advantage of the chance while Li Moying was teaching Li Lingchuan a lesson as he kept retreating backwards, and backwards, and backwards even more, hoping to retreat out of the boundary of his vision. But was Li Moying someone who was easy to fool, allowing him to run off like that? Master Leng, I remembered that I've warned you previously that if you try to get near my fiancé again, I will not take regard to the relationship between the two sects. I'd not expected that you actually dare to make a move towards Leah. This, meeting Li Moying's gloomy gaze, Leng Yifeng only felt his legs turning into jelly as his body involuntarily started to shake. He used up all his self-restraint, so he didn't knelt down on the ground in such an embarrassing manner like Li Lingchuan. But his heart was extremely terrified. Bearing the same chief eldest disciple status, but just one glance from Li Moying radiated such powerful aura, totally not giving him any possibility to resist against it. Why? Why was Li Moying that strong? He bore the brunt and spoke out with cold sweat soaking his clothes. Li. Young sect master Li, don't be rash. It's not fake that I like Miss Bai, but Miss Bai isn't married yet, so isn't it normal for me to like her? Even if sect master Murong finds out about this, he won't blame me for it. But I'm telling you, I'm the direct descendant of Leng family from Sky Emperor City. If you really dare to do something which is irrevocable, then the consequences isn't something which you can bear. Lung family, Li Moying repeated as there was a hesitant look in his eyes. Leng Yifeng hurriedly replied, exactly. I bear a status in my family. I'm sure you've heard of Lung family's reputation. What kind of thing is that? Li Moying cut him off coldly. You can also listen on. For a moment, Leng Yifeng thought that he had heard wrongly. What did you say? Seeing Li Moying's unperturbed look, Leng Yifeng emphasized again in disbelief. Are you crazy? I said I'm from the Lung family. My clan is considered a huge powerhouse in Sky Emperor City. You dare to slight the Lung family? Li Moying said coldly, Sky Emperor City has 7 great hidden sacred grounds. May I ask what rank does Lung family stand at? This, Leng Yifeng's mouth was agape as his tongue was tied, not expecting him to ask such a question. Lung family as compared to the top 7 sacred lands disciples of course wasn't even worth a fart, but in the eyes of ordinary people, it was already an existence which they couldn't even claim connections with. Li Moying continued, even if you're one of the disciples from the 7 sacred lands, but now that you're in the mystic region, who can save you here? Leng Yifeng's eyes widened as he simply could not believe that such a thing was happening. He had always been proud of his birth. Everything he was crushed by Li Moying, he would comfort himself, no matter how strong Li Moying's ability was, so what about it? In future his achievements would outshine Li Moying because their backgrounds were just too different. Don't think Li Moying was unparalleled now. If he really went to Sky Emperor City, it would not be his turn to be complacent. Leng Yifeng had always maintained this self-confidence, but in the end, the thing which he had been so proud of, in Li Moying's eyes, was actually nothing at all. He gritted his teeth. Li Moying, you can continue to be stubborn and reluctant to admit the fact. Even if I'm in the mystic region, if I die here, my family would find out about the news and by then they would definitely investigate and link it to you, so by then it'd be difficult for you to escape even if you have wing. Who do you think you are? No matter how talented, you're still a human. Do you think that you can go against the entire Lung family? Li Moying calmly replied, anyway you're going to die right now, so you don't need to worry about these. Saying that, the aura from his body suddenly rose sharply as his profound energy gathered in an instant as powerful or started to envelop the surrounding regions. Leng Yifeng retreated consecutively, but he was still unable to stabilize himself. Li Moying's back was facing the light and his aura was so powerful to an astonishing level. In just that instance, Leng Yifeng felt that he wasn't going up against some 7th stage realm talented practitioner, but a peerless expert whom he totally couldn't fight against. Right in front of him, he appeared to be so tiny, like an ant. Li Moying took a step towards him and Leng Yifeng instantly felt his blood surging around his chest as blood started to spill from the corner of his lip. He gave a dull moan and summoned up the profound energy with him while shouting out loudly, Li Lingchuan, what are you waiting for? Are you really going to be a sitting duck? Li Lingchuan had been waiting for this moment, and when he heard that, he swiftly leaped up from the ground. The two of them struck out at the same time. They knew that in front of Li Moying, even if they joined hands, there was no possibility of victory at all, so right from the start, the both of them used all their energy to unleash their killer moves and also gathered all their profound energy, casting their attack towards Li Moying. Luo Jiyun was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat and cried out in shock, eldest senior brother, be careful. Huang Yueli, on the other hand, stood at her original spot calmly, as though nothing had happened. If this degree of sneak attack was successful, then Li Moying would have been done away with in his past time long ago, so how would he become the #1 top exponent? Indeed, facing 2 6th-stage realm practitioners' utmost strike, there wasn't any change in Li Moying's expression at all. 7 sacred lands, #1 was Blue Profound Sect, whereas #2 was Mythical Flame Palace. You can also listen on. Li Moying had long expected that these two fellows would absolutely not surrender just like that and had been guarding against their kickback. At this moment, he merely retreated back slightly as he evaded the duo's attacks. At the same time, his right hand flipped and the amethyst light sword was unsheathed. Li Lingchuan's attack landed on empty ground, and when he saw Li Moying preparing to make a move, he totally didn't hesitate as he turned around and fled in defeat towards the densely packed forest. Leng Yifeng was preparing to take on his attack when his side glance noticed that his ally had actually run off. He was so angry that he threw out a mouthful of blood immediately. Li Lingchuan, you villain. You're making me bear the brunt for you. The two of them had obviously arranged to make a move together, but Li Lingchuan grabbed the opportunity to escape first, so wasn't that obvious that he was letting him be the cannon ash? Facing a top exponent like Li Moying alone, he definitely had no chance of survival. Although he knew Li Lingchuan was a despicable man, but he had not expected that he could be so shameless to this extent. Li Lingchuan wouldn't bother about him as he ran off without saying a word. At this moment in time, preserving his own life was the most important thing, so who would bother about society's morality? Leng Yifeng had teased Huang Yueli and he would definitely be dead, so he wouldn't possibly accompany him in his doom. However, at this moment, he suddenly heard a burst of split air sound. Immediately following that, his back felt a pained sensation as he was sent flying. Li Moying saw Li Lingchuan escaping for his life and his gaze flashed as the next strike was not directed towards Leng Yifeng, but conjuring the heaven and earth's profound qi, he pursued after Li Lingchuan, intending to escape for his life while things were still disorientated. That would have to depend on whether Li Moying was agreeable or not. How could Li Lingchuan possibly imagined that his self-professed intelligence had instead attracted Li Moying's attention, which brought his doom quicker than usual? Li Lingchuan's body was like a kite with a broken string as he shakingly fell into the deep end of the dense forest. The minute Leng Yifeng saw Li Moying distracted, he immediately retrieved a circular profound armament from his realm ring. This was an 8th tier profound armament, 1000 ray seal. It could only be activated once, and the minute it was activated, it could exhibit a strike which was equivalent to an 8th stage realm peak's potential. This was something which the family gave to direct descendants as a means to save their lives, and unless it was a life and death crisis, otherwise they were absolutely not allowed to use it easily. Leng Yifeng originally couldn't bear to bring it out, but Li Moying refused to falter and his ability was so powerful. Seeing the heavy strike which he dealt Li Lingchuan, it appeared that he was really prepared to murder someone. Leng Yifeng knew that if he didn't use this ultimate move now, he might not have another chance later, so he could only clench his teeth tightly as he placed all his stakes in this one bet. While Li Moying wasn't paying attention, he activated the 1000 ray seal and threw it out towards Li Moying's back. Moying, be careful. He has the 1000 ray seal in his hand. This time, even Huang Yueli became anxious as she cried out loudly. At the same time, she abruptly struck out, throwing out a handful of 6th tier profound armaments, clashing against the 1000 ray seal. 6th tier profound armaments naturally couldn't resist against 8th tier profound armaments, but as the quantity of profound armaments which Huang Yueli threw out was a lot, when it clashed against the 1000 ray seal, it managed to diminish a portion of its energy and at the same time, decreased the speed of the 1000 ray seal. Li Moying heard her cry and hurriedly turned back. Leng Yifeng's lips revealed a cold smile. Although he had not expected Huang Yueli to suddenly make a move and had actually managed to diminish a portion of the might from the 1000 ray seal, but even so, this was still the full force strike from an 8th stage realm practitioner who was at the peak. You can also listen on. Under such kind of pressure, practitioners under 9th stage realm would all suffer from serious injury. Li Moying was just in 7th stage realm, so naturally there was no need to say anything else. Perhaps he might even die on the spot, becoming a dead corpse. At the very least, he would be seriously injured and was unable to continue battling. Even it was a waste of his biggest ace, which made Leng Yifeng feel an extreme heartache, but thinking that he would be able to eradicate such a problematic thing and also enabling him to snatch Huang Yueli over, so he felt that overall, it was still worth it. Unfortunately, Leng Yifeng's smile immediately froze on his face. Li Moying turned around and he gave him an icy cold stare. Beneath that pair of eyes, there was no fear or terror which Leng Yifeng had anticipated. His right hand flicked out his sleeve and pointed the amethyst light sword towards the sky as he shouted softly, "Amethyst light sword, unseal." The spirit of the sword Little Lilac appeared in the middle of the sky, and under the drive from Li Moying's sword chi, it suddenly charged towards the 1000 ray seal. The two bursts of profound energy clashed together and gave off an earth-shattering sound. The entire cliff started shaking and there were many rocks by the side of the cliff which broke off from the vibration as it dropped down into the valley. Huang Yueli's blood started to surge by the vibrations and she almost threw up blood as she retreated several steps continuously, all the way until she reached the side of the cliff. She turned her head back and realized that Luo Jiyun's condition was pretty bad. He was originally hurt continuously and already in a half-dead state. Now suffering from the clash of the powerful profound energy fluctuation, his face had totally turned white like paper as his eyes lost spirit and he looked as though he was in a semi-conscious state. Huang Yueli frowned and shot over like an arrow. She didn't dare to shake Luo Jiyun's body so she could only release the rope on his body carefully, then quickly check on his injuries. Originally after Luo Jiyun had taken the pills which Li Moying gave him earlier, he had a good turn with regards to his internal or external injuries. But later on, he was continuously injured heavily again and with the urgent turn of events, his injuries were much more serious than earlier when he was stuck in between the rocks. Although Huang Yueli wasn't proficient in medical skills but she could still sense that a few meridians in his body had been shattered and there was a danger of his cultivation falling apart if he didn't get any urgent medical care. She hurriedly retrieved the pills for treating internal injuries from the Sky Phoenix ring and stuffed it into his mouth in huge quantities. Then she forced a large cup of Spirit Saint spring water down his throat and at the same time, placed her right hand against his back as she slowly infused her profound energy into his body. Her profound energy wasn't as overbearing as Li Moying's and it was apparently much gentler but luckily it was extremely pure. She had passed the refinement process and used phoenix blood to refine her body, hence the impurities in her profound energy had almost been eliminated totally, so what was left was all that pure heaven and earth profound energy. Because of this, Huang Yueli's profound energy merged easily along with Luo Jiyun's, so she aided him to clear his meridians and restore the damage in his meridians. Under Huang Yueli's hard work, it was merely a quarter of an hour and Luo Jiyun's complexion evidently changed for the better. He gave a low moan and with a PFFFT, he spat out a mouthful of black, dirty blood. After that, his eyelashes shook as he slowly opened his eyes. Huang Yueli immediately leaned closer as she asked anxiously, "Junior brother Luo, how are you feeling? Do you feel better now?" Luo Jiyun was apparently still in a daze as he didn't respond. Huang Yueli frowned and wanted to continue asking. Whoever knew that Luo Jiyun suddenly opened his eyes as it was filled with terror. "Little sister-in-law, be behind. You can also listen on." Huang Yueli was stunned momentarily and didn't manage to respond in time. However, at the next moment, she suddenly felt someone pushing her back hard and she fell sideways as she lost her balance. She had placed all her attention on Luo Jiyun. Directing profound energy was an extremely dangerous thing and if she didn't control it well, both parties had a possibility of falling into qi deviation, so she didn't dare to be careless. Plus the fact that the only person present who was a threat to her was Lung Yifeng, but he was currently under Li Moying's control, so she didn't think that any other accidents could happen. Right now, when she was suddenly pushed by someone, she regained her senses and steadied herself. But the position she was at was originally very near to the side of the cliff and many of the rocks below her feet had already loosened from the vibration earlier. She stepped down on one foot and just nicely stepped on a piece of loosened rock and that rock immediately slipped down from the cliff. Huang Yueli managed to steady her own body and pulled out a coil of rope from her arms as she thought of securing a stable position to help with her balance. However, the minute she threw out her rope, it was instantly thrown back at her. Huang Yueli couldn't find any stronghold and she was unable to control her own body totally, so she fell down the cliff along with that falling rock beneath her feet. "Little sister-in-law." Luo Jiyun's inconsolable terrified voice was heard from the top of the cliff. Huang Yueli tried her best to turn her head back and she looked upwards. A familiar figure appeared in her vision. It was Murong Fei. Damn it, all of them had forgotten about Murong Fei. This thought flashed past her mind and immediately after, her body started to drop downward swiftly. At this particular moment, Li Moying was finishing up Lung Yifeng. As a direct descendant of the Lung family, Lung Yifeng had a number of profound artifacts on him, as well as some ace profound skills that he had up his sleeves. Although Li Moying had gained the upper hand, but in order to kill him, he still needed to put in some effort. Just as he had heavily injured Lung Yifeng and was about to kill him, Luo Jiyun's miserable cry suddenly entered his ears. Li Moying's actions stopped and he turned back to take a look. On one look, he felt his entire body's blood froze instantly. Because he had just witnessed the scene where Huang Yueli's body falling down from the cliff. No. Leah. He couldn't be bothered about Lung Yifeng as he immediately turned around and sped towards the direction of the cliff, wanting to pull Huang Yueli. But no matter how fast his speed was, it was already too late as he could only watch Huang Yueli's figure disappearing in the thick fog. Li Moying's body shook as he couldn't believe that he had just left for such an amount of time and his Leah actually met with critical danger, falling down the cliff, whereas he had once again saw her disappearing right before his eyes. It was exactly the same as what happened in his past life. Li Moying's vision grazed past Murong Fei cold. That gloomy gaze was so terrifying, as though he was a demon who came from Hades as he was filled with an indescribable hatred and murderous air. Murong Fei was so scared that her soul almost flew out to the extent of her teeth chattering. Right before this, Li Lingchuan and Lung Yifeng had intentionally found a reason to send her away just because they were afraid that she would mess things up, so that they could deal with Li Moying in peace. They originally thought that things would be settled very quickly, but whoever knew that it had dragged on for so long. Furthermore, instead of deriving at their motive, they fell into Li Moying's hands instead. You can also listen on. Murong Fei was left out by them for a long time and she finally couldn't wait any further as she ran over by herself. The minute she arrived, the first thing she saw was Li Moying and Lung Yifeng breaking out into a big fight and she was suddenly confused as she didn't know what had happened. However, on the second look, she saw Huang Yueli and Luo Jiyun by the side of the cliff. The position where the both of them stood was simply too near the cliff and the minute Murong Fei saw that, an evil intent immediately arose. She had long wanted Huang Yueli to die but Li Lingchuan and the others refused to let her kill her. Murong Fei had been feeling worried, especially when she thought about the fact that Huang Yueli would follow Lung Yifeng in future and even becoming the young mistress of Lung family. It made her extremely jealous. Now there was a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity which was right in front of her. Huang Yueli's back was facing her and she was so concentrated in treating Luo Jiyun's injuries. She only needed to give a slight push from behind and that little slut who had been crushing her in every day, would die. Murong Fei was thinking of that and her lips revealed an evil smile, as she immediately acted on it. Her luck wasn't bad at all as she successfully pushed Huang Yueli down. Originally she intended to push Huang Yueli down and then quickly hid herself away. She thought that Li Moying was intoxicated in the battle and probably had not noticed her at all. However, she had not expected Luo Jiyun to suddenly regain consciousness at this moment in time and even spoiling her plan to hide away. Murong Fei actually wanted to push Luo Jiyun down as well but luckily for him, his ankle was still tangled by the rope. She pushed him and he fell out by a distance and was tangled, almost falling down. In this way, Murong Fei was completely exposed in front of Li Moying. Luo Jiyun cried out in grief and indignation, "Eldest senior brother, little sister-in-law you absolutely cannot let Murong Fei off. I saw it with my own eyes, she's the one who pushed little sister-in-law down." Murong Fei's body shook as she knew she was totally a goner as Li Moying would definitely torture her to death, alive. She didn't think too much as she immediately turned around and escaped in a panic. However, she had just taken a step and was struck by Li Moying's casual bolt of lightning. Her entire body was smoking and she fell straight downwards. Luo Jiyun stared at Li Moying tightly, thinking that he would chase up to her and catch Murong Fei to torture her alive to take revenge for Huang Yueli. Whoever knew that after Li Moying struck once, he totally didn't bother about Murong Fei's situation. He didn't stop in his tracks and he ran over to the cliff directly. Luo Jiyun instantly realized what his motive was as he cried out in terror, "Eldest senior brother, please don't do it." But Li Moying's speed was extremely fast and before his words ended, Li Moying already leapt up, jumping into the deep abyss. Luo Jiyun's expression was pale as he pounced to the side of the cliff. He only saw Li Moying's black figure dropping down speedily and not long after, he too disappeared into the thick fog. "Eldest senior brother, little sister-in-law, both of you, please don't die. It's all my fault, I'm the one who caused your demise. Luo Jiyun fell onto the ground in a slump as he was extremely remorseful, feeling guilty to the max. All these happened because of him. First, Li Moying met with danger and had a narrow escape before he finally got up from the cliff. Thinking that everything had been solved, whoever knew that to save him, Huang Yueli didn't notice and fell down the cliff. You can also listen on. Now, Li Moying had proactively jumped down the cliff for Huang Yueli. If the both of them really died down there, even if he died 10,000 times, he could hardly absolve himself of the blame. Luo Jiyun trembled as he squatted beside the cliff while silently praying, "Eldest senior brother, little sister-in-law, you too must come back alive." After Li Moying jumped down the cliff, he didn't hang on to the side of the cliff but allowed himself to fall down directly. He was caught off guard while worrying about Huang Yueli, hence, he directly fell down the cliff, hoping to be able to intercept her in the middle of the path. Li Moying was fully concentrated on searching for Huang Yueli in the middle of the sky. However, as the fog around the cliff was simply too thick, especially now that it was already evening time and the sky was turning dark whilst the fog was getting thicker and thicker, he wasn't able to see Huang Yueli anywhere. Just as Li Moying was extremely frustrated, suddenly a bright light broke out from beneath. A bundle of flaming fire seemed as though it descended from the sky as it hung in mid-air, giving off a brilliant and dazzling flame. This flame even broke through the thick fog, clearing up his eyes. The ray was so bright that Li Moying almost couldn't open his eyes, and it took quite a while before he could see the situation in front of him. A huge phoenix appeared in the middle of the sky, and the brilliance of those feathers was of a proud and beautiful matured phoenix. The moment the gorgeous feathers opened up and slowly fluttered, it seemed as though a ball of fiery flame slowly burning while showing off its brilliance and flowing lights, dazzling one's eyes. On the back of that phoenix was a dainty, petite figure. Dressed in white, it set off her elegant complexion, and on that huge awe-inspiring phoenix made her appear godly, elegant, and refined. Li Moying couldn't help but cried out, "Leah!" Huang Yueli raised her head suddenly and saw Li Moying's falling figure. She hurriedly patted the phoenix below her and prompted with haste, "Wang Cai, Moying's fallen down, quickly fly over to catch him." The phoenix which she sat on was little phoenix Wang Cai. When Wang Cai was still at a tender age, he was able to burn up all the energy in his body and turn himself into the state of a huge phoenix for a short period of time, and had once saved Huang Yueli's life in the Dark Moon Forest previously. Now that his ability had been promoted, the image of his phoenix form was even more beautiful as his wings were broader, and furthermore, the time he lasted was much longer as well. When Huang Yueli fell down, she immediately summoned Wang Cai, but unfortunately this little fellow's transformation speed was a bit too slow, almost causing her to fall to her death, but finally managed to catch her in time. Hearing Huang Yueli's command, Wang Cai was extremely unwilling to do so. He had always been on loggerheads with Li Moying, and the bloodline or coming from Li Moying made it felt extremely uncomfortable entirely every time it neared him. What was scarier was Li Moying's icy cold look that scared it and kept pressing it to cultivate. The person Wang Cai hated the most was Li Moying, but he was unfortunately his master's fiancé, someone whom Wang Cai could not afford to offend. Now that he could finally get the chance to see Li Moying falling to death, Wang Cai was feeling delighted in his heart, but whoever knew that Huang Yueli actually asked it to go save her. Wang Cai dragged on and off as it intentionally flew very, very slowly, with the intention to drag on the time. Huang Yueli was extremely anxious as she patted its head hard. "Hey, why are you in a daze for? Hurry up. If you don't work hard properly, there will be no drumsticks for you in future, moth." Anyway, it hadn't eaten chicken drumsticks for a very long time. Wang Cai refused to give in and was still flying very slowly. Li Moying fell down straight and indeed brushed past the huge phoenix as he continued to descend. You can also listen on. But Li Moying didn't reveal any anxious or terrified expression at all. Just as he happened to fall past that huge phoenix, Huang Yueli's right hand suddenly swung, throwing out a rope towards him. Li Moying raised his hand and let that rope coil around his wrist, then following Huang Yueli's pull, he slightly took a breath as he leapt onto that huge phoenix's body. Wang Cai was so infuriated. That irritating fellow was still able to climb up on him. It really wanted to fling him down, but female devil was still riding on her back. It didn't want its master, whom it had tried so hard to save, to meet with danger once again. Just as little Wang Cai was in a dilemma, Li Moying had already seated himself comfortably on the phoenix's back, hugging his own fiancée tightly. Leah, you're all right. You're really all right. That's great. I was almost scared to death earlier. Li Moying hugged her arm, as he shivered. Huang Yueli immediately pacified him. No matter, don't worry. Although I didn't react in time when Murong Fei pushed me, but I won't die that easily. No matter what waves might come, if I were to die in that kind of rubbish's hands, then I'd be just too unlucky. She intentionally made it sound very easy, hoping that the man beside her could relax a little. However, Li Moying's face was black. Your joke isn't funny at all. You plainly know that the cliff is very dangerous. Why did you stay there? Huang Yueli innocently blinked her eyes. Wasn't it because I wanted to save junior brother Luo? Then surely you can't risk your own life for it, isn't it? His life isn't as important as yours, all right? Huang Yueli laughed out loud when she heard that. If junior brother Luo hears you saying that, he'd cry. Who cares if he cries or not? Have you or have you not recorded the things that I've told you? Huang Yueli looked at that man's anxious looks as she felt helpless. She knew that Li Moying was worried about her, but at that moment then, she totally could not have expected it. Right. She hurriedly switched topics. Do you see my huge phoenix? Isn't it flashy? Make a guess how I caught it. Li Moying shot her a glance as he spoke sarcastically. Do I even need to guess? It must be that dumb little phoenix of yours which had transformed into this. At least this little thing is of use, otherwise it's really a waste to rear it. I'd even despise it to be cooked, there's just too much oil. With a loud chirp, Wang Cai gave off an anguish cry. It almost couldn't endure it as it wanted to fling that fellow on its back down, but luckily it suddenly thought of Huang Yueli and managed to endure it. However, what made it even more infuriated was coming right up. Its master actually didn't answer back sarcastically to fight for justice for it. Instead, she was like a little bird relying on that man's side, following him as she joined in the ridicules. Aya, don't sprout rubbish. If it was to cook into a meal, it'd be much better to be fat. Thin ones aren't delicious. You don't even know how to cook, so you don't know. Listening to their conversation, they were actually discussing how to eat it. Little Phoenix was devastated as it wanted to fight back. Just at this moment, it suddenly felt that something was not right as the movement of his flapping wings started to slow down. The other two seated on its back also sensed this as they both sat up straight, exchanging glances at each other. The surrounding profound energies fluctuations are extremely strange. I think we're probably in trouble, Huang Yueli frowned. Li Moying's expression also started to turn grave as he stood up and immediately pulled Huang Yueli in a protective stance behind his back. You can also listen on. Be careful and hide behind my back, protect yourself properly. Li Moying instructed in a deep voice. Huang Yueli took a step back but didn't follow his instructions to hide herself. Instead, her brows furrowed and observed the surrounding situation. Right at this moment, she recalled what Li Lingchuan told her when they were on the cliff above. Their current position was the central area of the mystic region. According to Li Lingchuan's saying, this was an extremely dangerous place and it gathered a huge amount of high-leveled magical beasts. Before this, Li Moying was trapped on the cliff below because he was attacked by these magical beasts. Now that they had fallen to this place, it was much deeper than where Luo Jiun had been trapped, so it would definitely be much more dangerous. Just as Huang Yueli was in deep thoughts, wings flapping sound was heard from everywhere. Amidst the thick fog, magical beasts started appearing one after another. Huang Yueli's eyes grew wide as she felt a surge of shock rushing into her heart. Even though she was mentally prepared, but seeing so many high-leveled magical beasts with her own eyes still made her feel appalled. The flying magical beasts which surrounded them were at least 6th tier, and furthermore, there were 10 or more of them. Huang Yueli had absolute confidence towards Li Moying's ability, but he was after all only in the 7th stage realm, and after experiencing several battles earlier, was it really not a problem to deal with so many magical beasts now? Huang Yueli bit her lips as she said softly, You must be very careful, I'll cover you. Li Moying shook his head slightly. You'd better try not to make a move. These magical beasts depend on swallowing profound energy to survive and advance, so the minute they sense any profound energy fluctuation, they will rush over and charge towards you. The minute you make a move, you'd be deemed as a delicious dish to them. But Huang Yueli somehow felt that something was amiss and wanted to say something more. But at this moment, the magical beast at the foremost position couldn't hold on any longer as it shot forward in mid-air, charging viciously towards them. Huang Yueli shut her mouth tightly, not daring to influence Li Moying. Li Moying's finger flipped and he grabbed the amethyst light sword in his hand tightly. Not only did he not retreat or evade, instead he charged towards the magical beast. His sword brandished out, "Gaga! Gaga!" Miserable cries were heard. That magical beast was struck by Li Moying as its entire body was bathed in blood, falling straight down into the cliff. Huang Yueli's eyes widened really large and stared at Li Moying intently. He actually didn't use a single bit of profound energy, merely using that sharp half-god relic and his physical strength to directly chop off a 7th-tier magical beast's wing. Even though she knew he was very strong, but wasn't this a little too ridiculous? Could it be that he didn't need to use his profound energy but he was able to challenge realms way above him? Even if it was in his past life, Li Moying didn't seem to have such a powerful body. The intensity of his physical body and profound energy were two different things. Although the physical body could be trained via various training cultivation methods, but they mainly depended on their innate bloodline, while it was extremely limited to advance through acquired means. Hence Li Moying's ability, which he had displayed, could only be explained as something which he was born with this lifetime. What kind of abnormal bloodline was so powerful like this? Even if he was really from the Cloudy Chilean clan, surely he needn't be this powerful, right? Li Moying turned his head back to realize that his little fiancé was in a dazed look. He cried out anxiously, "Leah, stop being in a daze, ask your dumb phoenix to fly higher quickly. Take this opportunity to do it now." Saying that, he pointed to the front not too far away. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli followed the direction of where his finger was pointing to as her brows twitched. Not too far away where Li Moying had just struck and injured that magical beast, it didn't fall into the depths of the valley but was surrounded by a group of magical beasts. Its body was seriously injured, but it was not blood which gushed out from its wound, but substantial profound qi. The other magical beasts sensed the fluctuations of profound energy and, like a mosquito which smelled stench, they all crowded around the injured magical beasts as they started attacking it wildly. That magical beast was originally hurt, so naturally it couldn't win the masses and was quickly surrounded. The other magical beasts rushed over and fought with one another, trying to take a bite out of it. Very quickly, they devoured it cleanly while it was still alive. Huang Yueli's scalp went numb as she finally realized why Li Moying had sternly requested her not to strike out casually. The magical beasts below this cliff were simply too vicious, not even letting off their own species. The both of them with abundant profound energy were simply like sending a sheep to the mouth of the tiger. Huang Yueli didn't dare to hesitate as she hurriedly patted Wang Cai's head while urging, "Quickly." Wang Cai quickly flew upward. "You don't want to be swallowed alive by these magical beasts too, right? Work harder a little more, try your best. After we manage to escape unscathed, I will definitely make you chicken drumsticks. No matter how many you want, I will satisfy your craving and guarantee you to have your fill." Little Wang Cai's tears were all over his face. To think that she was finally willing to give him chicken drumsticks at this point of time. Female devil was indeed one who wouldn't release the hawk until she saw the hare. But what was the point of saying all these now? Even if there were no chicken drumsticks, it didn't want to be swallowed alive, so naturally it would try its hardest to fly upwards. But it had already used up all its energy and really couldn't fly any faster. The deep valley below the cliff seemed to have a strange power which kept on restraining it, exhausting its profound energy faster than usual by several times. There was also a gust of airflow which kept revolving around it, as though it wanted to pull it down into the deep valley. Little Wang Cai tried really hard and it was able to surge upwards slowly, but its speed was gradually decreasing. "Hurry, hurry, hurry." Didn't you claim that you're the incisive and flashy spiritual beast? Why is it that you're not able to do it at a crucial moment? Huang Yueli's heart was burning with anxiety as she urged. However, there wasn't much use. Those magical beasts were hovering around in the lower part of the sky, and after they had devoured the magical beast, they started eyeing them covetously as they started to gather around. Li Moying's expression was cold and stern, and that bewitching peach blossom eyes were filled with chilliness as his right hand grabbed the amethyst light sword tightly. His body was upright like a pine tree, standing in front of Huang Yueli while shielding her behind his back. Huang Yueli saw the situation was getting worse and made preparations for battle. Just at this moment, some magical beasts couldn't help but start charging towards them again. The only difference was that it wasn't just one, but three altogether. Li Moying concentrated his senses as he struck back in full force. His sword brandished out and struck towards that magical beast in the middle, striking it down with just one strike. Immediately following that, the long sword in his hand had switched direction as it pierced towards the magical beast on the left. His action was very fast, but those flying magical beasts were also very swift. While he was making his move, the magical beast on the right had already broken through his blockade, charging towards Huang Yueli's direction while opening its mouth trying to bite Huang Yueli. Damn it! Li Moying noticed this, and he was feeling extremely anxious as he hurriedly sent the magical beast in front of him flying as he turned around to rescue her. However, it was still too late. The magical beast had already flown towards Huang Yueli. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli was dealing with a magical beast whose stage realm was much higher than hers by an entire huge realm, but the expression on her face was still extremely peaceful. Her right hand waved and suddenly struck out. 10 over crystal clear flying daggers flew out from her hand, and the speed of those were shockingly fast. This kind of flying dagger was originally transparent, and the light below the mountain was pretty dusky, hence the magical beast couldn't see the direction where she shot out the flying dagger, only assuming that she was waving her hands in fluster without any direction, hence it didn't evade at all while charging straight towards the flying daggers. A stabbing sound was heard and the flying dagger pierced through the magical beast's eye. Gaga! The magical beast, which suddenly lost its sight, shrilled out in pain as it patted its wings with all its might while struggling. Li Moying managed to turn back in time and dealt it with a serious injury, causing it to drop down the cliff. 3 magical beasts were heavily injured, and in the process of falling down, it expectedly caused the wave of looting from the other magical beasts. Bursts of miserable bird cries could be heard from the bottom of the cliff, and in the dusky light, it appeared to be extremely eerie and scary. This goddamn place. It's indeed a place where only 9th stage realm practitioners could enter. Huang Yueli was still feeling flustered. Cloudy Chalene Mystic Region's central region was simply too dangerous, even more dangerous than those early historical mystic regions which she had been to in her past life. Even if she and Li Moying still had their past life's cultivation, they had to plan carefully in detail before entering. For them to suddenly intrude in like this was simply no different from seeking death. Li Moying frowned. No wonder Leng Yifeng, they all wanted to deceive us to come down here. It's almost impossible to leave this ghostly place after you've entered. If it wasn't for your phoenix, we'd probably be dead right here today. Huang Yueli hurriedly urged. Wang Cai, try your best. Work your hardest. If you don't fly up higher, we'd all be swallowed and skinned alive. Little Wang Cai used all its strength and patted his wings with all its might. As there were a total of 3 magical beasts which were injured and fell down the cliff, the other magical beasts spent quite an amount of time trying to swallow them. Taking this opportunity, Wang Cai indeed flew up higher by a distance and had already flown past the midpoint of the mountain. Huang Yueli lowered her head towards the cliff, and in the fog, she could not see the silhouettes of those magical beasts. Apparently, after they tore at those 3 injured magical beasts, they could not sense their positions and totally lost track of them. Huang Yueli breathed out a long sigh and said, "We seem to have finally shook them off. Now we must be extra careful to not use any profound energy so as not to attract their attention, then flying up the mountain shouldn't be any problem at all." However, Li Moying had a grave expression on him as he gazed at the cliff below afar. "I think things will not end so simply." His voice was deep as he spoke. Huang Yueli's heart cringed as she hurriedly took a glance below the cliff again. The flapping of wings was getting more and more distinct, and the magical beast's figure appeared once again in the fog. Furthermore, this time round, there were at least 20 magical beasts. As compared to earlier, not only had it not decreased, instead many more appeared. Huang Yueli looked at these magical beasts in shock. What situation is this? Why must they get tangled with us non-stop? We obviously didn't use any profound energy. Li Moying's forehead creased tightly as he shook his head. I also don't know, but now is not the time to think about these. We seem to be getting into deep trouble. He was usually calm and composed, and it was a rare sight to see him being so highly strung like now. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli also knew that they were on the verge of a life and death crisis. These magical beasts kept pouncing from the front and back, seemingly not knowing when to give up. If this carried on, the magical beasts which were attacking them would increase in numbers, whereas they weren't able to use a single ounce of their profound energy, so sooner or later, they'd not be able to persist on. Even for the first wave of attack like now, they didn't know if they were able to withstand it. The strange thing was that they obviously had not used profound energy, so how did they still attract the magical beast's attention? Earlier, when Li Moying saved Luo Jiyun, he had obviously used his profound skills, thus causing the attacks from the magical beasts, but right now, everything had been safe and sound. Why was it that when she fell, the situation changed totally? Huang Yueli's eyes suddenly lit up as she thought of something. But now at this point of time, she had lost the chance to speak out. Another wave of magical beasts started their attacks once again. This time round, the number of magical beasts which attacked simultaneously were much more than before. Wave after wave, they continued to surge towards them. Li Moying's gaze was chilly and his moves were like lightning. The places which his long sword had grazed past laid a heap of magical beasts shrilling out miserably as one after another started to fall into the cliff below. Huang Yueli and his coordination was perfect as she kept adding on side stabs, causing quite a number of magical beasts to fall as well. Right now, she was feeling extremely lucky that she had once bathed in phoenix blood to strengthen her physique. Otherwise there was no way she would be able to use her profound energy to go up against such a strong intensity fight. The two of them had shown explosive ability which had far surpassed their own cultivation, and if there were anyone else who saw them now, that person would be extremely shocked. Because only 9th stage realm practitioners who used their power to suppress the weak might not even be able to display their current battle power which they were displaying right now. However, even so, they could not find a way to get rid of these magical beasts totally. The number of magical beasts gathering around were increasing, and for those which they simply were unable to block, they could only watch them flying nearer and nearer to them. Li Moying locked Huang Yueli's waist and dragged her to his side, sticking close. The battle following this was even more intense and were all close fights. He was worried that he would get distracted and unable to guarantee his fiancée's safety. However, the matter which went on later was totally out of his expectations. While the two of them were fully focused on them, those magical beasts didn't continue to charge towards them. Instead, they started towards little Wang Cai, whose wings were flapping non-stop. Kai kai. Kai 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 kai. Little Wang Cai's shrilling cries shot past the cloud. Several magical beasts continued to attack towards it, and that made the inexperienced little phoenix totally lost as it flapped its wings in disorientation, in a bid to chase away those disgusting magical beasts. But this degree of resistance was not enough to go against those ferocious magical beasts. After little phoenix was torn at by then, very quickly, blood started to appear on its wings. We must have met living ghosts. How could these magical beasts be so intelligent to know that they must attack our mount first? Li Moying's expression turned green as he kept brandishing his sword to drive away those magical beasts attacking little phoenix, but these magical beasts were extremely persistent and some of them totally ignored him as they only had one thought in mind, which was to take a bite at little phoenix. Huang Yueli bit her lips as she answered sorrowfully, "If I didn't guess wrongly, these magical beasts' target is actually Wang Cai." Li Moying was stunned momentarily as his hand that was brandishing his sword paused shortly, and he was almost bitten by the magical beast which came flying over. Directed at this dumb phoenix. How is that possible? Why are you so sure? You can also listen on. Huang Yueli threw out a flying dagger, successfully shielding Li Moying from the magical beast's attack. She speedily narrated, "Don't you find it weird? When you and junior brother Luo fell onto the midpoint of the mountain, if you don't use your profound energy, then those magical beasts would not be attracted. But why was it that when we fell, we were targeted by so many magical beasts for no reason? We had obviously restrained ourselves to not use any profound energy. Even for our attacks, we didn't even use any profound skills." Li Moying frowned. "That's right, this indeed is very strange. But what does it have any relation to Wang Cai?" Huang Yueli replied, "To be honest, I also don't know what's the relationship, but the minute Wang Cai appeared, these magical beasts started to pursue us tightly. Now the magical beast's leading target is it. I'm guessing perhaps this target is too big, so we're unable to conceal ourselves, hence we have no way to shake off these magical beasts' attack." Li Moying's thoughts ran through wildly as he merged all the scenarios which had happened earlier, and he had no choice but to agree with Huang Yueli's words. But he was still feeling puzzled. This is just too abnormal. Although this phoenix of yours is a little dumb and a little weak, but no matter what, it's still a spiritual beast. Spiritual beasts' existence naturally bears a powerful might over ordinary magical beasts. So when these magical beasts saw Wang Cai, they should avoid him from a far distance instead. But why is it that instead of doing so, they kept pursuing him relentlessly instead? Huang Yueli pondered on this for a moment and replied, "I feel, the reason might be because, this is the Cloudy Qilin clan's turf." Li Moying was stunned. Huang Yueli continued, "Didn't Cloudy Qilin clan and Sacred Phoenix race have some feud going on? Even Cloudy Qilin clan's little Qilin which they reared refused to let me touch it. Those magical beasts in the central region might be attracted by Little Phoenix and thirst for its profound energy, which is a normal thing, right? We also don't know what the top exponent of the past Cloudy Qilin clan had given any spiritual hints." Li Moying recalled the scenario where he had taken in the Little Qilin several days ago as his heart jolted. He had to admit that Huang Yueli's deduction was possibly correct. "What you said should be correct, but in this way, doesn't that mean that we have no way to leave this place?" The position where they were at right now was still very far away, and moreover, they were a distance away from the cliff as there were no places which they could borrow strength from. Under this sort of scenario, if they wanted to return to the top of the cliff, they could only rely on Little Phoenix to fly over. But mounting on Wang Cai would cause them to be attacked by the central region's flying beasts, totally unable to shake them off. If this goes on, they would definitely have no way to return to the top of the cliff. The current predicament which they were in right now could be explained as in between a hard place and a rock. Just as their thoughts were racing past, quickly trying to think of a way out, Little Phoenix had totally lost energy to persist on. Don't think this little thing was usually very arrogant. To tell the truth, it was just an inexperienced noob spiritual beast which had not had any experiences in battling, so since when would it ever see such a spectacle? Being surrounded by so many magical beasts at the same time, it immediately started to turn anxious. Following that, Wang Cai was quickly attacked again, and after it was inflicted with an injury, it became even more flustered as it started to flap its wings disorientedly, but that was of no effect at all. In fact, it revealed more flaws as it increased his injuries. Even with Huang Yueli and Li Moying's cover, they weren't able to save it. Eventually, Little Phoenix couldn't endure it any further and puffed out a burst of flame in the sky. You can also listen on. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.